The city is burning, but our boy is having an internal monologue wondering if history is going to remember him as the loyal knight who stuck by his emperor till the end or as a complete dumbass who backed the wrong horse. And the funny thing is that he's not vibing with either option. This is Cain, the imperial guard who served under an emperor that went full psycho and made a deal with a demon, meaning our boy picked the worst boss ever, and he's thinking it would have been better if everyone just forgot about him entirely. But nah, fate had other plans. Cut to this dude absolutely losing his shit over Cain's body, screaming at him and calling him an idiot. This is Hello Reston, the rebel leader, and he's not happy, crying his eyes out and asking why Cain turned his blade at the last second. Like, bro, you could have just run away. Why did you do this? He's shaking Cain's corpse, yelling, "Open your eyes, you bastard," but our boy's already checked out, the lights are off, nobody's home. Now Cain's walking through this trippy afterlife that looks like someone spilled a Van Gogh painting everywhere, and he's like, so this is death, this is freedom, walking forever in a screensaver. Weak, but hey, at least Halo cried for him, so that felt kinda nice, and he's thinking he'll just enjoy this so-called freedom when suddenly this blue glowing orb comes flying at his face and goes straight into his eyeball. Next thing he knows, he's opening his eyes, and there's this old dude who looks suspiciously like Halo, except ancient and wrinkly, saying he was born healthy and calling him Charon as the old man asks his father if he wants to hold the baby, and they're all going on about how he's not even crying and what a strong boy he is. Meanwhile, Cain's brain is lagging hard trying to process what's happening, and then it hits him. Oh shit, this is Halo, just old as hell. And that's when baby Cain starts bawling because bro just realized he got reincarnated as his best friend's grandson, making Halo think he made the baby cry by accident. But nah, Cain's just having an existential crisis in diaper form. Fast forward, and we're in a history lesson where the professor's going on about how the noble knight Cain, who died 45 years ago alongside the emperor, is remembered as a symbol of unwavering loyalty, and sitting there listening to all this is 10-year-old Charon, and he is not having it. The professor's like, your grandfather Duke Halo probably just wanted to restore his friend's honor, you know, since they were besties and all, and Charon straight up goes, nah. I think grandpa's holding a grudge and deliberately making his dead friend look like a hero just to mess with him, which gives the professor a priceless expression. Charon explains that Halo can't accept that Cain wanted a quiet death, not to be turned into some legendary hero, that he just wanted to peace out, but now he's getting the full propaganda treatment. Hearing this theory, the professor's sweating bullets because a 10-year-old just casually dropped the most controversial historical take ever. And he's like, if I agree with you, the Duke's Knights might literally kill me for blasphemy, so I've never considered that perspective before. Charon laughs and says he's kidding. But yeah, he's been reborn as Charon Reston, third son of Halo's youngest kid, Count Pale, and he is pissed that Halo turned him into a hero when he specifically wanted the opposite. Speaking of his dad, we cut to Pale kneeling and praying. This man is the sweetest thing ever. He never awakened any magic powers, so he's worried sick that he passed that burden on to his son, and Charon puts his hand on his shoulder and tells him he's the greatest father ever, and Pale just melts, hugging him and pinching his cheeks, then asks what Charon wants for dinner. And of course our boy says, meat. That night, Charon's lying in bed thinking about the upcoming awakening ceremony, and he remembers Halo explaining it to him and how not everyone awakens, and even if you do, it doesn't guarantee you'll become head of the family. Plus, there's some mysterious secret only the family head knows about. Young Cain asked if it was treasure or a grimoire, acting all uninterested but clearly curious, and Halo promised to tell him the secret if he became head, to which Cain said he'd rather just live quietly somewhere remote, but Charon's already awakened his magic. The blue aura starts glowing around him, and he thinks, Dad, don't worry, I got this handled. Turning out he's been awakened for a while now, he just hasn't told anyone. The next day, the family's heading to the capital, and our boy is all excited to get on a train. His mother told him how the commercialization of the train was only possible because of his father. She is winking at him, saying how he is truly amazing, and even Charon is surprised, thinking how even though Pale doesn't know how to use mana, he is still amazing in other ways. He funded the train and other magical shit, and contributes to 30% of the Duke's income, though he quickly forgets about it all and starts geeking out because it's his first time on one. As they're riding, Charon spots the Reston family's main estate, the Azure Sea Fortress, and he gets this evil little smile. He's thinking about how he's going to see his grandfather again, his old friend Halo, and how Halo turned him into this great historical figure. But Charon's got plans. He's going to become the opposite of everything Halo built up, going to make sure all those worries were for nothing, and become somebody completely unbefitting of the family name. Our boy's about to speedrun the family disappointment route, and honestly, after getting turned into a propaganda poster child against his will, I don't blame him. He tells his old friend to wait for him because his precious grandson is coming. The scene shifts and the train pulls into the station, and this old dude named Heinrich welcomes them. doing the whole formal greeting thing with Pale, and Charon immediately clocks the knights standing around, and he's already getting the look because they can sense he's awakened his mana, and he's like, these guys are way different from the scrubs back home, actually competent, figuring it's only a matter of time before Halo finds out, but whatever, not like he cares. They head to the main palace, and this lady shows Charon to a reception room, telling him to wait there while his dad meets with the family elders, and Charon's looking around thinking, damn, this is just a reception room, and it's already massive. This fortress is insane. Already getting bored and maybe regretting not asking to go to the library instead. Then some kid starts laughing at him from across the room, saying, going to the library as soon as you arrive, just like the rumors, total bookworm, and Charon turns around like, who is this guy? As the kid keeps going, saying since Charon's father never awakened magic, his chances are slim too, so he better study hard if he wants to make money like the commoners, just like his dad, topping it off by mocking Charon's haircut. Then this bastard made a mistake that he shouldn't have and asked our boy if he wants to fight. This little shit was all too confident in his magic power, saying that today he'll teach our boy a lesson, at which point Charon just glares and asks if the main family is raising a delinquent or something. The kid's confidence is crumbling as he realizes Charon's releasing his aura, making him stammer. Wait, when did you awaken? Your dad never said anything, Charon tells him. His dad doesn't even know yet, and more importantly, there's no room for two delinquents in this house. I'm taking that role, so step aside, and as the kid is confused. Meanwhile, our boy goes, that settled it. It's time for you to finally get a beating. Cut to the elders' meeting, where they're discussing how Charon awakened, and 3 captains already confirmed it, with Raphael, the second prince, being all suspicious and asking what Pale's plotting, to which Pale replies, bro, I didn't even know. While the first son, Tails, tells Raphael to chill with the conspiracy theories since Pale never awakened magic himself, causing Raphael to call him pathetic, until this guy bursts into the room telling Heinrich he needs to come quick, which makes Raphael storm off following the butler after everyone's confused, only to find Leo absolutely wrecked, sprawled on the couch, looking like he went 12 rounds with Mike Tyson. Seeing his son all messed up, Raphael loses it, and then this bastard grabs our boy by the collar and screams about manners and what the hell he was thinking. While Pale tries to intervene, but Charon calmly explains that Leo was insulting my father, and there's no way I'd just stand by, leading Raphael to call it nonsense until Pale grabs his shoulder, telling him that's enough, and Raphael snaps at Pale, saying it's all because of his poor upbringing that Charon's acting out, only for Heinrich to drop the bomb the Duke himself will pass judgment, causing everyone to freeze as they head to Halo's study with Raphael still fuming. Inside, Halo asks why Charon caused such a massive incident the moment he arrived. Pale tries to explain, but Halo shuts him down, saying, I wasn't asking you, and says he wanted to hear it directly from Charon, though he adds that Pale had raised him correctly, and that there is no way that he'd do something like this without a reason, so there must be an explanation. Seeing that Halo's actually giving him a chance to explain before punishment, our boy is all surprised as he thinks, acting generous doesn't suit you, you bastard, and tells him straight up Leo insulted his father, causing Raphael to call him a liar until Halo slams the desk yelling at Raphael to shut up, demanding how dare you raise your voice, which makes Raphael immediately back down apologizing, but Halo says they'll bring Leo in to confirm the facts, then turns back to Charon saying, that's not the only thing I wanted to ask you, and Charon casually drops it if you're asking about my magic power, I awakened it 3 years ago, making the entire room go silent as everyone's jaws hit the floor, and Halo asks why he kept it hidden, especially from his own father, calling it insane for a kid to awaken on his own 3 years ago, to which Charon says he only realized it was magic power after reading about it in a book later, and once he figured it out, he decided keeping it secret was best. When Halo asks why, Charon hits him with the most unhinged answer, having a secret is fun. And it was even more fun because the knights in our territory had no idea either, revealing this kid's literally been trolling everyone for 3 years just for laughs. The butler brings in Leo, wrapped up like a mummy. Halo asks if he really insulted his uncle, and Leo hesitates, but Charon immediately puts on this performance, saying even though his cousin made fun of his father, he still shouldn't have hit him, and he's committed a sin, which terrifies Leo, who then has a full PTSD flashback upon remembering Charon's aura and just goes, yes, it's true, causing Halo to say he'll postpone punishment for both of them until after the awakening ceremony tomorrow, and dismisses everyone. Once they're alone, Halo asks Heinrich what he thinks of Pale's son. Heinrich says he's not sure, but there were definitely many interesting aspects, which Halo agrees with, noting that not only did Charon awaken on his own and hide it for years, but he seemed to be questioning the skill level of the knights assigned to his father's territory, subtly pointing out that by assigning such weak knights, Halo was neglecting them. Heinrich says he's overthinking it, but Halo's like, I wish that were the case. This child is different. determined to find out what's special about Charon tomorrow during the ceremony, because just awakening magic power doesn't tell the whole story, and whether Charon completes the ceremony safely or not, and what he'll obtain there, Halo's extremely curious. Then the scene shifts, and we are shown this altar deep inside a forest that I'm guessing is where the ceremony is going to be held. So it's nighttime, and our boy Charon's getting escorted through the forest by literally the entire family lineup. Charon's looking around thinking, damn, they really called everyone for this? We're talking about the retired grandpas who could probably still kick ass. Tails, his daughter Leon, Raphael, and his son Leo. The whole squad's here, making Charon realize this ceremony might be a bigger deal than he thought. They finally reach this altar with some mysterious stone, and Charon's like, so that's the Stone of Oath? Huh? Grandpa Halo steps up all serious and explains that when Charon steps through the rift this stone creates, she's going to see some personalized nightmare dimension that's different for everyone, with the goal being to get a weapon from that world and destroy it. Charon nods, saying she's ready, and Halo raises this amulet like he's about to summon Exodia. The moment that amulet connects with the Stone of Oath, reality starts glitching out, with space and time literally tearing apart. The pressure is so intense everyone's bracing themselves, and Halo's asking Charon if he's scared, while Pale looks worried as hell. But Charon just shrugs it off, saying he'll be right back after all. Destroying stuff has always been his specialty. As he walks into this dimensional rift, Halo gives him one last piece of advice and yells out to our boy, telling him to overcome his fear. Charon steps through the portal, and guess what he sees? Of all the possible scenarios, he's back as his old self, Cain, the Emperor's lapdog, on the day of the revolution, and Charon's immediately pissed, thinking, of course, this is what it shows me. Out of all my memories, it had to be this guilt trip, as the stone's basically throwing his dead comrades in his face, making him relive the worst day of his life. As he's walking toward the throne room, this creepy-ass voice starts echoing around, calling him child of the Blue Wolves and going on about some ancient covenant with his ancestors. Charon's like, great, is this a demon? But the voice is all cryptic, saying, nah, bro, your bloodline's too pure for a regular demon to mess with. Now man up and get to that throne. He pushes through the gates, and there it is, the throne. The Emperor was so obsessed with that, he literally made a deal with a demon for it. Charon's standing there, realizing that all his comrades die because of whatever's sitting on that throne, and it feels like he's walking over their corpses just to reach it. The voice keeps rambling about how Charon, blessed by the cold North Sea, has finally arrived, and on behalf of the Blue Clan, welcome home and all that jazz. Then Charon sees it, his old sword from when he was Cain, the one the Emperor gave him, which is called Ruin. And surprise, surprise, it's a demonic sword, and the voice tells him to pump some mana into it. But Charon's immediately like, yeah, no thanks. That sword literally eats people's souls. But the voice insists, saying Charon's grandfather already purified it, and what he's seeing is just a demonic illusion trying to scare him, though Charon's still hesitant because touching that sword might bring back all those memories of blindly following the Emperor's orders, until he remembers his grandfather telling him to overcome his fear, and it clicks. Oh, so that's why Grandpa was being so nice about this, realizing the ceremony isn't just about getting a cool weapon. It's therapy disguised as a weapon trial where the family heir needs to face their deepest fear head-on. So Charon grabs the sword, saying, all right, if that's what this is about, let's get it over with. And the second he channels his mana into it, he gets yeeted to the bottom of the ocean, where he's floating like, is this the Azure Clarity? And watches as the sword transforms from this evil-looking demonic blade into something pure, making Charon realize this isn't just any sword, it's the original sword of his ancestor, Rael. His grandfather also has a progenitor's sword, but this one's so powerful and different from the family's usual style that it was literally erased from history books. Then the sword starts going ham, and Charon feels this overwhelming power surge through his body, barely holding it together and asking what the hell is happening, to which the voice is like, just endure it, bro. The sword's engraving its mana into you, and Charon's thinking this is the most intense power-up he's ever felt, finally asking, okay, what's this sword's actual name? The voice gets all dramatic, explaining that this is a sword made specifically to kill demons and devour their powers, so much so that demons were terrified of it and erased it from their own memories. Born from the deep, dark, pure seas of the north, its true name is the guillotine, the execution sword. Charon's staring at this blade, and the voice continues, saying it matches his destiny perfectly, dark like the deep sea. Charon's curious now and asks who this voice even is, guessing it might be the Blue Dragon, their family's guardian. But the voice pulls a "you're not worthy of knowing my true name yet" card, telling him if he ever gets strong enough to dominate the seas, he can find them in the North Sea, leaving Charon slightly annoyed but focused on bigger concerns like how does he get out of here. The voice is like, you already know, and Charon grins, realizing he just has to break the throne, saying he's always wanted to destroy that thing anyway, and he channels his mana into the guillotine and swings down with everything he's got. Back outside, the tension's thick. Halo notices Pale looking stressed and tells him to chill out, but Pale apologizes, saying it's hard watching his son go through something he never experienced himself, prompting Halo to give him some wise father advice about composing himself, and Pale smiles, but then the Stone of Oaths starts glowing again. Except this time, it's not just opening, it's breaking. Halo's shocked as reality starts distorting again, the forest is pulsating with energy, and the entire altar begins crumbling. Halo's screaming, what the hell is going on? And then, through all the chaos, Charon just casually walks out holding his new sword like he didn't just destroy a pocket dimension, with everyone staring at him, then looking around for the Stone of Oath, which is just gone. Because our boy really said, pass the trial and break the trial, because why not? So everyone's just standing there absolutely shook, trying to figure out what the hell just happened, with Pale having a full-blown panic attack, screaming at Charon like, bro, what did you do? Why'd you break the stone? And Charon's freaking out too because honestly, he has no idea what he just unleashed. Meanwhile, Halo's staring at this weapon that just appeared, and his face goes completely pale as he whispers, that's the guillotine. He is thinking how no one knows about that sword because it has basically been erased in the annals of history, like some Harry Potter Voldemort-level scrubbed from history, with only the family head and the elders knowing the story by word of mouth, making Halo wonder, why the actual hell is this legendary forbidden sword just casually showing up right now? He turns to Charon, asking if maybe he's scared of the sword, but then gets this weird look on his face and mutters something about the Covenant approaching. Charon looks down at this ancient death blade at his feet and just goes, nah, I'm good. And Halo's like, alright then. After that, he starts explaining how way back in the day, their ancestors made this pact with a blue dragon to wipe out all the demons, but they completely failed. So they left behind this Stone of Oath as proof they tried, basically passing the responsibility to future generations, and now it looks like Charon's the poor bastard who has to finish what they started. Halo raises his hand all dramatically and declares that Charon, son of Pale, is officially a legit member of the fortress, chosen by the guillotine itself, and worthy of learning the Spirit Sea style, which sounds cool until you remember this is basically a congratulations, you're drafted into an ancient blood feud situation. Raphael's standing off to the side, still absolutely pissed about his son's tragedy of a haircut, muttering that he can't believe some brat is getting this honor, while Tails is way more chill about it, just curious about the sword itself. While everyone's talking, Pale's comforting Charon, saying he thought he knew every weapon in their family arsenal, but has never even heard of this thing, and just looking at it gives him the creeps. He admits that his son is walking a path he could never handle himself, but he's not about to let family drama get in the way of success, and Halo announces the awakening ceremony is over and it's time to bounce. As they're leaving, Raphael loses it and starts yelling at his brother Tails, asking if he's seriously just going to stand there and let this happen. And Tails says they need to have a private chat soon, adding that even someone as greedy and ambitious as Raphael should be feeling how serious this situation is, leading them to ask if Tails knew about the sword. To which he replies, nope, first time seeing it, causing Raphael to have an existential crisis going. I don't understand why it's Pale's son of all people. Pale's trying to be the voice of reason, saying this isn't the time for family infighting. And cut to the next day at the train station, where Pale's being a worried dad, asking Charon if he'll really be okay staying at the fortress alone, to which Heinrich replies, dude, is there anywhere safer than the fortress? Pale admits that's true, it's safe from outside threats, but what he's worried about are the threats inside, meaning his backstabbing brothers, though he doubts they'd try anything too crazy with his father there. Heinrich clears his throat and drops the news that the person assigned to teach Charon the Spirit Sea style is none other than Lady Sabina. Hearing that name, Pale's face lights up, saying he hasn't seen his aunt in forever, but if it's her teaching Charon, he can relax, and Charon recognizes the name immediately. She's Halo's sister, a master just as skilled as he is, who used to be called the White Wolf back in the day. Pale tells him that his aunt has always spoiled him rotten, so he better not disrespect her, and Charon promises he'll do his best. Heinrich adds that the family head is preparing a residence for Pale in the fortress so he can visit anytime, causing Pale to start crying like a baby, saying he's so grateful to his father, and Heinrich tells him it's no big deal. Pale says his goodbyes, telling Charon to contact him if she ever needs help, and hops back on the train. Charon heads up to the top of the fortress as Heinrich tells him they should get going because Sabina's waiting, to which Charon replies, yeah, can't keep my great-aunt waiting, and Heinrich immediately stops him, offering crucial advice that Sabina absolutely hates being called grandmother, and Charon should avoid that word at all costs, though Charon thanks him for the heads up while internally thinking, what's wrong with calling a grandmother a grandmother? They enter the fortress, and Heinrich explains that only direct descendants can enter this cultivation chamber, telling Karen that Sabina's already inside and that Leo's there too, making Karen excited that training with Leo sounds fun, especially since Leo specifically requested to train under Sabina. Karen says he's heading in, and as he runs off, Heinrich watches him go, thinking it's going to get lively around here again. Karen stands outside the door and can immediately sense the intense aura coming from inside, thinking, yeah, this is serious. Just then, he hears a voice asking him if he is planning to stand there all day like an idiot instead of coming in. He enters, gives her a respectful bow, and his jaw drops as she asks if he's surprised she doesn't look like he expected, revealing she looks way younger than Halo. Like, this woman does not look like anyone's grandmother, and she casually mentions that he's Pale's son and says time really flies, making Charon's mind race as he thinks she must have reconstructed her body with magic, which is an 8-star knight ability. But there's no way, right? She snaps at him, asking why he's standing there like a statue, and tells him to sit cross-legged next to Leo. Sabina says she never thought she'd hear someone as young as him call her the White Wolf, and Karen explains he likes history and read about her in a book, making her smile and say he's just as interesting as her brother said he'd be. And when Karen perks up to ask what his grandfather said about him, she tells him that Halo said he's someone she'll definitely take a liking to. And now that she's seen him, she understands why, explaining that Halo told her Karen is a child who must navigate a vast ocean, and she needs to help him so one day he can rule the sea. She gets up, announcing it's time to begin, and explains that by using Azure Mana, they create and operate oceans within their own bodies, meaning the more oceans they can operate, the stronger they become. And when they can operate 8 oceans, they reach the 8-star level. The stage where he can operate those 8 oceans as if they were one giant sea is the 9th star, and on the entire continent, only 3 have reached that level, and in the Empire, only 1 person. Karen says that it's his grandfather, and she says that's correct, making Karen determined this time to reach where Halo is in this life. She can feel the desire coming off him, and says that he's an interesting boy, and he'll be fun to train, then decides it's time to start, and she says first that he should let the mana flow through the passages opened by the ritual and remember that the power of the sea is not something to be controlled, but to be accepted. He starts to feel his mana, saying that it feels like rough waves, and he needs to calm it down, and he starts to focus it from his heart, and he looks much different than Leo in terms of how much mana he's producing. She notices this, asking if this is really the mana of a kid who just finished the awakening ritual, because even Leo, who has been taught the domination technique for the last 2 years, has only just begun aiming for the 2nd star level. But in contrast, Karen is carving out his mana passages on his own, even though she hasn't taught him how yet. Karen says he feels a pain as if his body is being torn apart, and he starts to stop his training, and she wonders if he's feeling the strain, saying it's good he can even control his pace. She looks over, noticing that Leo is tweaking off some fent, and she says she told him not to force himself to operate his mana, and he apologizes, and she says she was so focused on Karen she forgot that even if they've awakened their mana, they're still just children, but she just wonders why his hair is so messed up. That's why she needs to act like the adult to prevent them from harming their bodies. She thinks to herself that it's impressive he managed to stop at his own limits so he wouldn't strain his body, and at such a young age, to have the composure to control himself despite his desire to grow stronger shows how bright her older brother was, but she doesn't think she'll need to act as his lighthouse. She walks over, calling out to him, saying that in 3 years, she'll guarantee his safety and he should focus on building the strength to protect himself. And he says, okay, now it's time for practical training. So they head out to where all the other trainees are, and Fantasy Saitama is training too. The instructor turns, seeing Leo and Karen walking in, and Leo asks if he's really planning on using that sword for training. Karen says, of course, as everyone kept saying its aura is menacing, so he's not even allowed to take it out of the scabbard, and Leo says that's not what he's talking about. The instructor welcomes the 2 of them, and Karen looks up to him, and the guy introduces himself, saying that today he will be in charge of his sword training and he is the Knight Commander of the Seawolf Knights. His name is Xeraz's Winterguard. Karen says it's a pleasure to meet him, and he can tell at a glance that he's at the 8-star level. Xeraz says that he may find this rude, but he will not be addressing them with the title of Young Master or anything, not until they are acknowledged. Karen says he shouldn't worry about it, as it's more comfortable for him actually since he's not used to that title anyway, and he's well aware that it's a test in family tradition to earn the respect of the Blue Wolves through skill. Xeraz says that's a pretty interesting reaction since most would find it disrespectful, and Leo is no exception, and Leo just wonders why he's catching a stray. Karen stares at him, laughs, and says it won't matter as they will all bow before his feet, and Xeraz says that maybe a successor with a proper head on his shoulders has finally arrived, but then he looks at our boy, and he was making a menacing face, and Xeraz quickly changed his opinion, thinking that maybe someone even worse than that scum Leo has arrived. The scene shifts, and we get a whole 3-year time skip, and Halo's just chilling, having a few drinks with her sister, and she's going on about how her brother's liquor collection is absolutely fire. Halo clearly likes the compliment, but goes, "Yeah, that's true, but maybe stop raiding my stash, will you?" But Sabina just brushes him off, saying that's the least he can do after she spent 3 years teaching those brats. Hearing that, Halo gets all nostalgic, asking what she thinks about the boy after watching him all this time. And Sabina drops the bombshell. She straight up calls Charon a monster. Halo's immediately like, "Excuse me, you calling my grandson a monster?" But Sabina doubles down, saying even calling him a genius would be an insult at this point. Then Halo turns to Zira's like, "Bro, back me up here." But Zira's is like, "Nah, she's right. After 3 years of watching this kid, I have to agree with everything she said." He starts listing off all of Charon's insane qualities, his physical abilities, his talent, his attitude, his training mentality, and then hits them with the real kicker. Charon's actually better than Hugo, the first grand heir who everyone thought was the ultimate prodigy. Halo's brain basically short-circuits. He's like, "Wait, you're saying he's comparable to Hugo? The guy who's supposedly the best talent in the entire empire?" And Zira's just nods like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying." Now Sabina gets all serious, saying this is actually going to cause some major problems for the family if they don't handle it right. Halo's confused, and she explains that they need to think about what Charon's existence means for the line of succession. Basically, what happens when Charon's talent becomes common knowledge and his uncles realize their own sons are getting overshadowed by their nephew. Halo tries to defend his sons, asking if she's seriously suggesting they'd see their own nephew as a threat, but Sabina's not having it. She points out that, sure, Halo's got everything under control now, but once word spreads about Charon's ridiculous talent across the empire, things are going to get messy real quick. Halo realizes she's got a point. Then Sabina gets all sad and asks Halo if this is the end of their family since the Oath Stone is broken. Plus, magical beasts are flooding in from beyond the North Sea. Considering all of this, it's obvious that their family might be screwed. But Halo tells her not to think about it because the person who broke the stone is destined to raise a new one, just like their founding ancestor did way back when. Sabina's like, "Hold up, first time hearing about this. Is this some secret prophecy only the family head knows?" And Halo confirms it, saying the time of the covenant is coming. Sabina sighs, realizing their cute youngest is about to have the weight of the world on his shoulders, and asks when Halo's planning to tell Charon about all this. Halo just says he'll do it when the time's right. The scene shifts, and Pale is reading a letter from our boy. It starts off pretty standard, with him asking how his parents are doing and apologizing for not visiting because he's been grinding non-stop with training. He tells his dad to bundle up since winter's coming, and he knows his father gets cold easily. Then he casually mentions he's already mastered the 4-star sea control and also the 4th form of herring swordsmanship. He says he's been getting along with the relatives and taking care of Leo, but then comes the real reason for the letter. He's broke and needs an allowance top-up. Back with his dad, Pale, the man's literally laughing, asking Heinrich if he remembers how stressed he was when he first sent Charon to the fortress 3 years ago. But now the kid's thriving. Heinrich mentions the fortress is never quiet anymore, thanks to Charon's presence. Pale says he keeps telling the kid not to stand out so much, but Heinrich drops this poetic line about how a jewel shines even when covered. Then things get serious. Heinrich warns that the situation's changing and they won't be able to keep Charon's abilities secret much longer. He's probably getting assigned a real mission soon. Pale is worried because his 2 older brothers definitely aren't going to be happy about Charon's rising star, but Heinrich reassures him that Aunt Sabina absolutely adores Charon, and with her protection, the brothers can't really try anything. Pale is relieved, saying Charon's mentioned in every letter how much Sabina cares for him, but it's good to hear it confirmed. Heinrich adds that Sabina's always had a soft spot for Pale too, and Pale jokes that all those monthly allowances she's been sending must be helping him. But then Pale gets worried again and says that he heard that Sabina's leaving the fortress soon. Heinrich tells him not to stress because Charon has formed tight bonds with the fortress knights. They've even given him a nickname, which is apparently a big deal. Pale laughs, saying he's heard about it. They call him the young mad dog of the Azure Sea Fortress. We cut to a training scene, and there's Charon absolutely destroying some knight's blade in combat. The knight, Hans, is like, "Dude, stop, I already lost," and asked him, "How did you just redirect my sword and tank the hit?" But our boy basically calls him weak, saying a grown man shouldn't be this easy to overpower and that Hans's muscles are just for show. Hearing that, Hans is surprised because nobody's ever told him he's weak or that his muscles are decorative, but Charon's just keeping it real. Hans admits that fighting Charon without magic is becoming impossible, and it wasn't this bad just last year. He mentions Charon might be getting deployed on a mission soon, maybe to the Granary region out west, where magical beasts have been showing up more frequently. Charon immediately turns to Leo, asking if he heard that, and Leo says he does not want to be deployed with Charon. The guy he's sparring with tells him to focus on his own match. Leo apologizes but says at least completing a mission might make his parents proud. Back to Pale and Heinrich. Pale says the real reason he called Heinrich wasn't about the letters, it's something else. He shows Heinrich something the thief inspectors found in a merchant wagon from the barony of Bellis. Heinrich examines it, asking if it's what he thinks it is. Pale nods, saying that yep, it's drugs. And that's why he needs Heinrich to investigate the Bellis barony. The scene shifts, and we see a guy step off the train asking if this is the Azur Sea Fortress. Cut to our boy Charon, who's straight up robbing Xerez's liquor stash, and he's feeling zero guilt about it. He's thinking just because he got stuck in a kid's body doesn't mean he's forgotten what good alcohol tastes like. Plus, the thrill of stealing from Xerez never gets old. Then he spots two random people he's never seen before. One guy's asking a butler if it's true the Duke bailed, saying he's got urgent business. Butler confirms the Duke went to kiss the king's ass in the capital, so the Knight Commander's running things for now. Charon calls out to them, and the butler damn near jumps out of his skin seeing him there. Charon asks what's got them showing up this late. The guy introduces himself as Baron Rohan from House Bellis, saying he's got an urgent request. Charon just stares at him, and Rohan starts rambling about how Charon's the son of the third prince who got shafted out of succession. He says, unlike his dad. Though, Charon actually awakened magic and is training at the main house. He's doing this whole formal introduction thing while Charon's standing there holding stolen liquor. Charon cuts through the pleasantries and says he'll hear him out. The butler suggests they send this guy to the Knight Commander instead, but Rohan's mentally stuck on why the hell this kid's clutching a bottle of alcohol. Charon explains normally he'd just handle this through proxies, but if Rohan dragged himself here in person, it must be serious, only proper for a noble to receive him directly. Butler says he'll go tell Xerez separately, and Charon's like, yeah, do that. Rohan's thinking this kid's got some impressive political instincts, but that liquor bottle is really throwing him off. He's wondering if the rest of the family's just cool with a 12-year-old drinking. Charon gets straight to it, asking if the problem is the bandit group that set up camp in the eastern mountains of the barony. Rohan confirms it. Charon lists it off. Ever since those bastards showed up, drugs have been flooding the streets, and commoners are getting kidnapped and sold as slaves. Rohan admits, yeah, it's shameful, but their barony's got garbage land and zero specialties. They haven't had a proper military in a whole year, so they couldn't do jack about it. His dad couldn't take it anymore, and led whatever soldiers they had left in an attack. It went about as well as you'd expect. They got massacred. Now his dad's bedridden from the fight. He's blaming himself for both his father and the people suffering because of his incompetence. Charon sets the bottle down, saying scum like that deserve to be torn apart, but something doesn't add up. Even if their military's weak, regular bandits don't just stand up to an actual army. Rohan says it's not confirmed, but they suspect there are deserters from the southern kingdom that's currently at war mixed in with them. Charon thinks about it. Ever since they dethroned that evil emperor bastard, the downsized imperial army has been laser-focused on the south because of the war. No resources left for the north, so naturally public order's gone to shit. The deserter theory actually makes sense. Then he switches gears and asks if Rohan wants a drink since the mood got heavy. He laughs and explains his barony borders his father's territory. From his position, he can't just ignore this. If possible, he wants to help personally. Rohan thanks him, but he's internally questioning if it's really okay to drink liquor handed to him by a literal child. Charon says this stuff was swiped from Xerez's collection, so they have to keep it secret. Rohan points out that Xerez is the Knight Commander, though. And right on cue, Xerez walks in, saying he thought they agreed Charon would stop touching his liquor. Rohan nearly has a heart attack. Xerez apologizes for being rude, says there's no way the young Baron could have known about their situation, so he shouldn't worry about it. He's heard about the bandits causing trouble in the barony. Rohan confirms that's why he came to the fortress to see if the knights might help. Xerez agrees it's urgent, and Charon just laughs his ass off. Xerez tells him alcohol is not good at his age and snatches the cup away. Charon whines about wanting his liquor back, and Xerez apologizes to Rohan for the mess he's witnessing. Rohan says it's fine. Xerez gets serious, saying since Rohan came to them, they won't sit around while an old companion's in trouble. Rohan's relieved. Xerez says they'll organize troops to dispatch soon, so he shouldn't worry. Rohan's thinking finally he can bring good news back to his people. Charon says he wants to go. Xerez immediately shuts that down. The enemy are trained, and who knows what kind of experts are mixed in with them. Rohan's wondering if this kid was actually serious about wanting to help. Sure, he's training at the main house, but he looks 12 at most. Xerez admits in just 3 years, Charon's raised his magic to the 4th star realm and hit 4th form in their swordsmanship, but real battle's different. Charon argues overprotection's not good for him. He'd rather be sent west since a visible danger beats an unseen one any day. Xerez says he's got zero intention of letting Charon risk fighting enemies when they don't know their size, strength, or where their base even is. Charon grins and says he'll make Xerez an offer he can't refuse. Both Rohan and Xerez are like, what the hell could that be? Cut to Coconut Head asking why he's here. Charon's hyped, saying this is exciting since it's their first mission. Xerez is pissed, realizing he got played. He can't believe Charon pulled Sabina into this. She's just smiling, saying the two of them are so cute. Zeres admits it might be good since a reliable guardian's going with them. She got excited about her first mission too back in the day. He figures if Karen accepted on the condition Leo comes along, she must be satisfied with his training. Rohan's mind is blown that they have the legendary White Wolf here, but he's still worried about taking just 2 brats. If anything happens to the Duke's grandson, his house might get held responsible for it. Zeres tells him to relax. The things he's afraid of won't happen. Rohan asks if he was that obvious, and Zeres says with Sabina there, nothing's going to happen to those two. Then Sabina drops the bomb. Unless the kids are in mortal danger, she's not planning on stepping in. Both Leo and Rohan look horrified. Zeres says he knows she trusts their growth, but damn, that's harsh. She says he knows there's more to it than that. There's a reason she can't step to the front. He says he understands, and if that's her decision, he'll accept it. The train signals it's ready to leave, and she says time's up. Leo's looking weak because his hairline's already cooked and he's nervous as hell. Sabina says it's natural to feel nervous, but he should think of it as his chance to prove how hard he's worked for 3 years, a chance to be recognized as a member of the Blue Wolves. He says she's right. Charon asks if he always needs someone to push him from behind. Leo tells him to shut the hell up, and they hop on the train. Charon says he needs to find their spot. Leo's thinking he knew this day would come, when he'd have to prove himself, but he never expected it to come this soon. So they're hours deep into this train ride, and naturally, people start talking. Sabina drops the info that it's classified. She's even in Azure City, which means she can't publicly step forward. The second her presence gets known, the bandits will scatter like cockroaches, and Rohan definitely doesn't want that. He agrees he doesn't, but he's still wondering if it's really okay, trusting this whole thing to 2 kids. One doesn't even know what the word nervous means, and he thought this was supposed to be his first mission, while the other one doesn't even look like he is ready for a mission of this scale. Leo's thinking about his mother and folks. I didn't think that I could be jealous of that second son, but damn, that bastard got lucky. Remembering her asking how he can even get along with that boy, Charon, asking if he's forgotten what happened 3 years ago. He needs to remember Charon's not his friend. She's his rival. Charon disgraced him and tarnished his father's reputation, yet Leo still laughs and jokes with him like nothing happened. She asked if he even has a brain in his head. If he has a tongue, he should say something back. Leo says he's sorry, but they're not rivals. Even brother Hugo, the so-called genius, didn't hit 3 stars until he was 14. Charon reached it at 13. Meanwhile, Leo only managed 3 stars this year at 15. Surely she can see the difference. Charon might be his goal, but he can never be his rival. She tells him to cast aside that inferiority complex. He says that's not what this is. Charon's existence is the driving force pushing him to work harder and move forward. She says his eyes show he's really blind, that he's staring at the trees but missing the forest. Sabina snaps him out of it, asking if it's really that hard to shake off his nerves. He admits it is. She says it's understandable since this is his first mission, then asks if he'll even be able to cut someone down. Charon's the kind of boy who'd sell Leo out to save his own skin. But she knows Leo's different, and he doesn't need to doubt himself anymore. She knows better than anyone how hard he's worked these last 3 years. After all, she was the one who trained him. He says she's right, calling her master. She says that has a nice ring to it. They've got 20 minutes until they arrive in the territory. Then she pats his head, gets up, and tells him to address her as master for the duration of this mission, seeing her leaving. Rohan asks where she's going. She says if she shows up at the station, word will spread instantly, so she needs to move out first. He points out the train's still moving, though. He keeps calling her the White Empress, and she corrects him to just call her Lady Sabina, though she straight up ignores whatever he was saying and tells him that she'll be keeping an eye on these idiots so he doesn't have to worry about anything. And also, even if something happens to them, they'll not hold him or his family responsible for that. And then she straight up jumps out of the train. Seeing this, our boy laughs and says how she's as bold as ever. Both Rohan and Leo are thinking, why the hell is everybody in the Reston family like this? Cut to this old man coughing. This is Rohan's father, saying his body's not in the best shape, so hopefully they'll forgive him for receiving the young wolves of Reston while sitting down. Karen says don't mention it, asking how his wounds are. The Baron says he's past the point of danger, so he appreciates their concern. He mentions he doesn't know if Charon remembers, but he met him and his father 10 years ago. Says Charon's grown splendidly. Charon tells him to speak casually since he's not well-versed in etiquette, and it just makes him uncomfortable. Rohan suggests at least saying, young lord. Charon insists it just puts him more at ease. The Baron says if Charon's already on his first mission, he must have reached the 4th star at such a young age. Charon mentions his cousin Leo's 3 stars, though, and Leo's wondering why he's catching another stray. Charon's surprised the Baron knows this stuff despite not being a warrior. The Baron says even if he's not, the fact Charon got dispatched means he's thought of highly. Because of that, he hesitates assigning such a dangerous task to promising young men. Charon says he understands the concerns, but if they fail their mission, It would disgrace the proud honor of the Blue Wolves. They have no intention of failing. He asks Leo if he agrees, saying they'll see it through without fail. The Baron laughs and thanks them, then starts coughing again. Rohan asks if he's okay. Karen says it seems he needs rest, so they should leave. The Baron says he'll entrust this to them. The guide's been prepared, just follow him. As they're heading out, Leo calls to him. Karen asks if he's tired already. Leo says that's not it, but he wants to know if they can trust this so-called herbalist. Even if he's a skilled local guide, there's no guarantee he isn't working with the bandits. Karen asks if he's finally starting to use his brain, confirming the guy's definitely part of the crew. Leo asks how he knows. Karen explains because of the talk he had with Rohan when they first arrived at the station. He asked how they planned to track down the bandits' hideout, and Rohan said sadly he had no choice but to make use of a traitor from within their territory. Karen thought that was a solid method, though Leo still has his doubts and asks why he didn't tell him earlier. Karen says it's because Leo was wound up in his nerves all day. Leo's like, still, to think, Karen would knowingly stick with a traitor. He's really cunning. Karen says exactly. The fact this guy hasn't been punished all this time shows as much, but it also shows how desperate they are, which is why they're the bait now. Noble sons traveling through the Baron toward a neighboring domain. The perfect setup, looks like they're about to reel them in. The herbalist turns around with bandits behind him, saying this is good and he's added a little more than promised since they're nobles. The bald guy says these young masters don't look like they'll come quietly, but our boy was already ready for some violence, so he instantly drew his blade and straight up called these bastards insects, asking how dare they spread drugs in his father's territory. So we cut back to the Bellis barony, and the Baron is still coughing his lungs out. Rohan's immediately in concerned son mode, asking if he's good, and Pops is like, yeah, I'm fine, but bro, you're literally hacking up a lung. You're not fine. Rohan hands him some water like that's going to fix years of neglecting his health, and the Baron thanks him. Then Rohan's sitting there all worried, asking if those two young dukes are going to be okay out there. His father goes into this whole speech about how sending two kids into bandit territory without intel is basically the higher-ups saying, yeah, we trust these boys are built different. He mentions that Karen's kid specifically reminds him of the young duke, not just the looks, but also that cocky confidence and chill vibe. He's basically like, nah, they'll be fine. Rohan just nods, probably still worried, but whatever. Cut back to the forest, and oh boy, it's a bloodbath. Karan's out here speedrunning these bandits, chopping heads off left and right. Leo's just standing there watching this 3-year-old commit mass murder, and he's thinking, yeah, this kid's a straight-up monster. Even the bandits are shook. One of them turns to the leader like, bro, these aren't regular kids. We need to dip and warn the main squad. But the leader's ego is too fragile for that. The man charges in screaming about how he won't be disrespected by some brat, talking about I'll show him what I'm made of while jumping in the air and releasing his aura. Karon doesn't even flinch, he just casually swings his sword forward, complaining that this dude is so damn loud and it pisses him off, and slices the leader clean down the middle. The guy just drops to his knees, probably regretting all his life choices. Leo's over here like, wait, when did I even draw my blade? Meanwhile, Karon's wiping blood off his sword, annoyed that his clothes got dirty. Leo's putting his sword back, thinking about how Karon's aura felt so overwhelming he could have gotten his throat slit without even realizing it. The remaining bandits immediately throw their hands up, screaming, we surrender over and over. Karon asks one of them his name, and the dude says it's Yura. Karon asks if he's got rope, Yura confirms, and Karon tells him to bring it. Leo's confused as hell about what's happening. Next thing you know, both Karon and Leo have their hands tied up, and Leo's like, bro, do we really have to go this far? He gets tying himself up, but making the bandit carry their weapons? That seems excessive. Karon explains the plan to him, reminding him that they are acting as bait to find their base, so they have to make it believable. How's it going to look if we're strolling in with weapons? This way, it actually makes sense that we got captured. Then he yells at Yura, asking if they're deserters. Yura admits they were from the 9th Regiment, 1st Battalion, 3rd Infantry Division of the Kingdom of Seas. Leo's like, oh damn, they're from the south where the war's happening. Karon asks how big their crew is, and Yura drops the bomb. 130 men, including a mage and 2 knight escorts. Karon's surprised about the mage, saying 130 deserters is wild. Yura's sweating now, realizing he messed up big time. He thought these were just regular noble kids, but that blue aura from Karon's eyes earlier? Yeah, that means these are the children of House Reston, the literal heart of the Orish Empire. Karon's still thinking about the mage, though, wondering why deserters would travel all the way to this remote northern region. Yura explains it's simple. Their commander promised them enough money to retire and live the good life, so everyone followed. But Karon's putting the pieces together. Why would a random infantry commander have a high-level mage? And why would all these dudes be playing bandit just for cash? Something's not adding up. Yura says they're almost there, and Charon's like, guess I'll see for myself. They arrive at the stronghold, and some guys on the watchtower are questioning Yura like, bro, did you actually bring hostages? Where's everyone else? Why are you alone carrying their weapons? Yura spins this story about how he soloed these brats. This is his kill, so nobody better touch them, and the rest of the crew is chasing the guards who ran away. So hurry up and open the gate. One dude's making fun of him, asking if he's excited about finally getting praise from the boss. Another's like, took you long enough. Yura tells them to shut up. Charon observes that for a guy who joined a bandit crew, Yura's surprisingly soft and mentions there's this weird power he's been sensing this whole time. Yura's nervously sweating, staring at Charon's blade, saying he's been getting spooky vibes. Charon confirms that if his sword is reacting too, this might be worse than he thought. Leo tells him to look, and they see birds crucified and nailed up everywhere. Charon's face goes serious. If there are sacrifices strung up like this, we're definitely dealing with black magic. And just like that, this simple bandit raid just became a whole demonic cult situation. So Charon's standing there realizing that things are about to get real messy, and immediately tells Yura to cut the ropes and give them their swords back. And wouldn't you know it, right on cue, the magic circle on the ground starts glowing. Charon tells Leo to draw Sylphid, that's his sword's name, and be ready, because he's going to need it real soon. Leo's like, what do you mean? And then skeletons start popping out of the ground. Seeing this, Yura is screaming his head off. An entire undead army forms, and some dude starts yelling about how the hostages literally walked into their trap. It's a blessing from the gods or whatever. The leader of this merry band of psychopaths welcomes them, surrounded by archers, calling them precious noble brats. Charon's scanning the area, noting there's no sign of the Black Wizard, figuring he's probably hiding somewhere chanting demonic Spotify playlists or whatever creepy dudes do. Then Charon pulls an absolute power move, grabs Yura, and threatens to slit his throat, asking if they're cool with that. Yura's absolutely shook, and Leo's like, bro, how are we the ones taking hostages now? We're supposed to have noble honor. The leader just stares for a second, his men all locked in with their bows drawn, and asks how a noble can take hostages when they're supposed to value honor above everything. Charon hits him with a why can't we when you do it? Meanwhile, Yura's just standing there terrified. The leader says Charon's amusing but wrong, a worthless hostage is meaningless, and Yura is completely useless, so Charon can do whatever he wants with him. Charon gets annoyed and calls Yura worthless to his face, and the big dude is completely in tears. Leo's doing the math, realizes they're heavily outnumbered, and asks Charon if he even has a plan. Charon's like, of course I do. We just have to take down the commander. Then he starts releasing his aura. The commander recognizes the color and goes, there's no way. Charon tells Leo he's handling the skeletons solo while he deals with the commander himself. Leo's like, what do you mean? Then Charon starts releasing this azure mana that looks like ocean waves wrapping around him, and he launches off the ground. Leo's calling out to him when a skeleton immediately attacks, and Leo has to block it, screaming, Charon, what the hell are you thinking? How am I supposed to handle all these skeletons alone? The leader is yelling for his archers to fire as Charon closes in, but Charon's like, you're way too late, buddy. Using some fancy fortress sword style, he swings forward with movements that flow like ocean waves and just chops off the arms of multiple archers in one go. The commander's reaching for his blade, but Charon says, this is just a nuisance, and swings at him. The commander looks down at his own severed hand hitting the ground, drops to his knees, and starts screaming. Charon casually says if he was going to attack, he should have been faster about it. The commander's calling him a bastard through the pain, saying, there's no way the fortress has strength to spare for their territories. So why are you even here? Charon explains this barren land is right next to his father's domain, and he's not going to kill him, just drag his ass back to the fortress. Meanwhile, Leo's over here playing Dynasty Warriors with these skeleton soldiers, and Charon's like, hey, not bad. Even though Leo's probably having a panic attack, the archers still have their bows pointed, but nobody's shooting because they just watched this 3-year-old kid disarm their boys and cut their commander's hand off. Charon tells Leo that what he's doing works for the Sea Wave sword style, but he should really be crushing them with pure strength instead. The commander asks if Charon really thinks he's getting out of here safely, and Charon asks his name. Dude says it's Michael Knox. Charon says he's not killing him, then stabs him in the knee just to make a point. Michael's screaming again, and the archers are too terrified to move. Charon's laughing now, telling Michael to order his men to drop their weapons. Michael yells it out, and everyone starts dropping their bows. Charon's like, good boy. I like when people are obedient. Michael can't believe they lost to a couple of brats, but starts talking tough about how once the rest of their forces arrive, even Charon won't be able to handle it, even if he is from House Reston. Charon says it sounds like he's still got hope, asking if he's really counting on the Black Wizard, and if Michael actually thinks his family would send only 2 kids to handle this. Leo finally finishes mopping up the skeletons, and then there's a massive explosion. Charon's like, of course they'd have a guardian knight, and thanks to all the time he wasted here, it looks like his master already captured the Black Wizard. Cut to her walking up carrying the wizard's severed head, looking absolutely pissed. Leo calls out to her, and she starts yelling at both of them about how they missed the most crucial evidence and the mission's going to be a failure now. Charon just kicks Michael off the top of the platform, casually asking if she at least liked his method. She says charging straight into the enemy's base is something her brother would do, and she'll give him credit for that since it fits their house style. Then she just throws the Black Wizard's head at them. Michael looks down at his friend's decapitated head in horror. She asks why Charon even pulled that hostage stunt to begin with. He explains they wanted to strike where least expected since nobody would imagine nobles taking hostages. She admits that's fair, saying she's never seen a noble like him, he's a complete lunatic. Charon thanks her like it's a compliment. Michael's just sitting there, bleeding, staring at his friend's head, wondering if these people are even actually nobles. She tells them they should head back to Lord Bellis's castle because she has many questions for Charon. He agrees. Michael looks one more time at his dead friend's head and just thinks, these people are absolutely insane. The scene shifts to this wholesome reunion moment where all the captured slaves are meeting their families again. This dude runs in screaming for his daughter Isabel, and she just collapses into his arms. He's apologizing over and over for not being able to protect her, getting all emotional. Charon and Yura are watching this go down. Yura's staring at the reunion looking guilty as hell, and Charon asks if he's feeling bad now. Yura admits he is. Charon's like, yeah, well, it's a bit too early for that guilt trip because being thrown in the Baron's prison like your buddies might have actually been the better deal for you. Yura's confused, like, what do you mean? Charon told him that he's going to the fortress along with his boss Michael, who's still on the ground missing his hand. Yura's like, why me though? Even Sabina chimes in, asking if they're really not going to tie him up. Charon looks up at Yura and explains that for now they need someone to help transport Michael since the dude's too messed up to walk on his own. She's thinking about it, and Charon warns Yura not to get too comfortable. Just then, some of the freed prisoners speak up, asking if Yura is going to be punished too. Charon confirms it, saying that technically he's a bandit too, just like the rest. But then one of the men says it might be bold to speak up, but Yura actually took genuine care of them when they were imprisoned. He secretly brought medicine to the sick and gave food to people who were starving, so they're asking for mercy. Sabina looks at Charon, asking what he thinks. Charon says they should at least consider leniency since Yura helped guide them to the hideout. Yura gets all excited, saying he'll serve Charon loyally for the rest of his life. Charon immediately tells him, we just said, don't let your guard down. Just then, Leo calls our boy, saying that he found something, and that they should take a look at it. They open a barrel, and Charon's eyes go wide as she asks if this is what he thinks it is. Inside are magic stones. Meanwhile, the people of the barony are all hyped, watching the bandits get taken away. Leo mentions that Rohan's probably going to throw a whole banquet for this. He starts waving at the citizens all friendly, but Charon's just silent, clearly scheming. Leo asks if he's ignoring him. Charon says it makes sense now there was a reason such a large group was hiding in these remote mountains. The Baron's family probably didn't even know there was a magic stone mine in their own territory. He doesn't know the quality yet, but just having a mine could bring in serious profit. Leo's thinking, oh god, what's he scheming now? Sabina mentions that Rohan has come to greet them. Rohan welcomes them all as the rest of the crew takes prisoners to the dungeons. Sabina says she'll take the bandit leader, asking if that's cool. Rohan says of course, but he'd like to request something. She says she's only here as a guardian, so he should speak with her students. Rohan mentions they prepared a modest banquet and wants to eat and talk. Charon immediately apologizes but says they need to head to the fortress right away. Leo looks devastated, bro wanted that free food. Rohan asks if they're really sure, bringing up the payment for the commission. Their territory doesn't have the money to pay the fortress, so he'd like to request a deferral. Charon's eyes start looking greedy, and Leo's like, oh no, he's got that look again. Charon says he was wondering why the bandits chose to settle in this barren wasteland of all places, and now he figured it out. Rohan's confused, asking what he's talking about. Charon lays it out the Bellis barony is remote with no local specialties. It's literally just a hick village. Rohan's holding back his frustration, and Charon says the one thing they were after was something else entirely. He pulls out the magic stone, and Rohan looks shocked. Charon asks if he knew about these being in his territory. Rohan says no. He had absolutely no idea there was a mine anywhere close. Charon says if that's the case, he'd like to make a proposal. Rohan asks what, and Charon drops this business pitch. He wants to co-develop the mine with the fortress on the condition that the fortress provides initial capital and security. Rohan's mind is racing. This brat is asking about something that, even setting aside development costs, just storage and maintaining guards would be astronomical. But having someone from the Reston family hold a stake could benefit them greatly. He's calculating that it might be worth it, but he's thinking, who gave this kid the idea he can negotiate something this massive on his own? Charon says he'll have to report back to his father, but if the project goes through, Fortress Knights could be stationed here, boosting their economy and solving defense problems in one move. It's literally a win-win. Rohan asks what share of the mine the Duke's house would want. Karen says that's something he'd discuss with his father since a kid like him isn't qualified for the finer details. Meanwhile, Sabina's just standing there looking proud of her student pulling off business deals at 13. On the way back, Charon says he has a question for Sabina. He asks why she said things that might complicate matters at the bandit hideout. She brings up the Black Wizard. Charon asks if it's because he wasn't ordinary. She drops his name, Ted Delarda, a Class 2 wanted criminal in the Empire, a Sixth Circle Dark Mage. This catches Charon completely off guard. She explains he was a high-level fugitive running wild in Imperial territory alongside deserters from the Southern Kingdom. And Charon and Leo were too busy dealing with small fry to notice what actually mattered. She says people only grow stronger by fighting powerful opponents, and had Charon defeated the Black Mage first, he wouldn't have wasted time. That's why she considers this mission a failure, and he needs to remember that lesson. Leo's over here wondering why he feels left out of this conversation. Sabina calls to him, saying he actually did better than expected, and since it was probably his first time facing undead, he should be proud. Leo starts looking happy he's not being left out, and then she says he needs more confidence and maybe a new haircut. Back at the fortress, Heinrich welcomes the Lord back, saying he's finally returned. Halo asks if there was anything unusual. Heinrich reports the knights deployed to the west have returned, and Charon and Leo are back from their mission with Sabina. Then one of the butlers comes running over yelling. Halo asks what's wrong. The butler says it's a letter from the Imperial Palace. Halo's confused since the Emperor didn't mention anything before he left the capital. He reads it and is completely shocked. Turns out the Emperor is personally inviting Charon to the capital. So the train rolls into Changhae, and Yura steps off carrying Michael like a sack of potatoes. Dude's jaw hits the floor, because holy shit, he knew this place was supposed to be big, but this fortress is absolutely massive. Michael, still missing a hand and salty as hell about it, tells Yura not to buy into whatever that brat said. They're both getting thrown in prison any second now. Says if they want to live, they have to bolt the moment the guards aren't paying attention. Yura just decks him in the face, telling him to shut up already. Leo and Charon are watching this whole thing and enjoying it thoroughly. Yura's like, "You're the one who said I was useless and should just die, so why the hell would I help you escape?" Then Pale shows up, and it's chaos as usual. Charon lights up seeing his dad. Pale asks Sabina if she's been good, and she says more or less, mentioning he got summoned too. Pale says, yeah, because of whatever Charon pulled in Baron Bellis's territory, and man, what a headache. But he also says Charon looks pretty damn pleased with himself. Leo does this proper formal bow, asking how he's been. Pale says he heard Leo did some impressive stuff on the Baron's lands too. Word even reached him. His older brother probably heard as well, and he'll be thrilled. Pale says they're probably tired and should head inside. While they're walking, Sabina asks if he knows what's going on with the Empire because things seem sketchy. Pale drops, the political gossip, those so-called powerful families, besides theirs, are all buddy-buddy now, rallying around Duke Salmon and Marquis Diaz. Halo was planning to meet a bunch of families in the capital to figure out what the hell's happening, but he canceled everything after his talk with the Emperor went nowhere. He explains that Duke Salmon and Marquis Diaz are the ones who actually overthrew the old Emperor and put the current one on the throne, so they're the ones holding the real power now. The reason Sabina's brother backed off from central authority after the Empire got restructured was because he thought it was best for everyone's future, and now they're getting treated like this. Sabina says it looks like the peaceful times are wrapping up. Pale agrees, saying whether they like it or not, their family's got to make a move. Sabina points out that what his son did might actually work in their favor. They've got solid justification now to station troops on family lands and expand their reach. She says his son's pretty interesting for pulling off something so useful at the perfect time. Pale gets all flustered, saying the compliment's nice, and Sabina reminds him she wasn't praising him. Damn. Charon and the crew head back, and Zira says good work. He heard about the deserter situation. Karen points at Michael, saying that's their leader, and Zira says he'll interrogate him while he's still breathing. Hans asks who the guy carrying the bandit is, and Charon says he's a bandit too. Take him along. Yura starts panicking, but Charon tells them he's an informant, so go easy on him and let him go after because he's going to use him as a personal servant. Charon says he's heading in to rest, but Zeres shuts that down immediately. His mission's not done yet. He's got to file a report to review the mission and improve future ops. Karen asks if they have to write separate reports, and Zira says they can do it together. Karen's eyes light up. This is perfect because he did all the work so Leo can handle the report. Leo says it'd be faster if they work together, though. Charon tells him to think carefully once it's submitted. His dad's reading it too, which means Leo should pump up his achievements. That's his shot to score points with his father. Leo's like, that makes sense, but if my name shows up too much, won't that backfire? Xerez gets annoyed and tells Hans to just take the prisoners already. Then Sabina casually chucks the Dark Mage's head at Xerez, saying, as for her report, the boys can submit it under their names. She and Charon just bail, leaving Leo to do all the paperwork. Leo's calling after them, asking where Charon's going, and Charon says the training hall since he hit the 4th star and can use it solo now. Xerez watches him leave, thinking, if this kid's heading straight to train the second he gets back, how is anyone supposed to believe he's only 13? Like, seriously, this child is different. Cut to late night, and Halo says he called everyone for something important. Xerez says he brought what was requested. Halo reveals it's a piece of hide from a monster that showed up in the Western Ferment Plains. Looks normal at first, but the dark energy inside isn't just any force, it's the evil Emperor's black ether. All his sons look shook. Pale says the evil Emperor's been dead forever, so how's his black ether chilling in monsters? Halo cuts him off, saying there are only 2 options. Either they're leftover pieces of the Emperor's will, or the evil Emperor's still alive. Either way, this has to be connected to what's going down in the Empire. Plus, word about what happened on Bellus's land reached the Emperor, and now the Emperor personally summoned Charon to the capital. Raphael does not look happy about this, and Pale's just shocked. Halo says he can't send Charon alone, he'll send Leo and some knights too. Of course, he'll get Charon's take first, and if he refuses, Halo won't push it. Tails asks if that won't cause problems, and Halo says it's fine since Charon's still just a kid. But more importantly, he needs to hear exactly why Charon made that deal with Bellus's son in the first place. He says, bring Charon here right now, and we cut to Charon training his man in the hall, completely clueless that he's about to get dragged into a family meeting to explain his unauthorized business ventures. So Charon's mid-training when he spots Xerez and asks when he got here. Xerez says not long ago. Charon mentions he heard that besides direct family, Xerez is the only one allowed in the training hall, but he's never actually seen him come in before, so what's the emergency? Xerez nods and drops it. Charon's probably got to go to the capital. He tells Charon the head of the family wants him at the council meeting, so he'll get all the details there. Right before they walk in, the butler opens the door, and Halo asks if Charon enjoyed his first mission. Charon says, yeah, and Halo gets straight to it. He called him here because of what went down in the barony. Charon didn't have the authority to make business deals for the house, so why'd he go rogue? Charon's thinking, oh cool, so this is a lecture, not a celebration. Halo asks if it ever hit Charon that his arrogant move was massively disrespectful to the Bellis family. Charon says nope, he just made a deal with Bellis, and the Baron's son accepted on his own. Plus, he figured there was something way more important than noble formalities. Halo asks what could possibly be more important to a noble than courtesy. Charon thinks about it and says the family's honor. Halo looks happy with that answer, saying considering how valuable the deal is, Charon could have bragged about his own accomplishment, but instead he put the family's benefit first and backed off. That's solid judgment, and the relief of not getting kicked out for unauthorized business deals is just a bonus. His uncles are all staring at him, and Charon notices they're watching very carefully. But Halo says alright, in the end, the deal Charon brought back helps the house big time, and Pale can handle the rest of the negotiations. After all, there's nothing wrong with a father benefiting from his son's work. Pale says he'll leave for the barony at dawn. Then Halo brings up the Emperor's letter. His Majesty summoned Charon since word about him already reached the capital. Charon's thinking that, according to Xerez, the Emperor's letter showed up even before Halo got back. He's wondering if the Emperor's intelligence network is that good, but then realizes the current Emperor's just a puppet. It must be the powerful nobles behind him doing the spying. As he said that, awkward silence filled the room, and Halo told Charon if he didn't want to go, he didn't have to. He must have figured out what heading to the capital right now actually means. The noble houses there will definitely want to confirm who he is, and it might be smarter to stay under the radar, so skipping the capital is an option. Xerez looks at Halo, wondering why he's even giving him a choice when he doesn't need to. Charon says, of course, he'll go. He'll even get to see his grandfather on his mom's side after forever, but he wonders if he's going alone, pointing out Leo was on the mission too. Halo says if Charon goes, Leo's coming with him, and Han's squad will escort them. Charon asks why, if his grandfather's there, does he really need protection? Halo delivers the roast. Don't flatter yourself. They're not there because you're special. It's because nobody knows what trouble you'll cause next. Damn, his own dad just wrecked him. Cut to later at Bellus's barony, where they're finishing negotiations. Pale thanks them for their work and asks Rohan if his father knows these terms. Rohan says, of course his father agreed. The mine shares will be 80% Reston and 20% Bellus barony. Since magic crystal stones are crazy profitable, even a small cut means serious money. But the condition of giving 5% of that 20% specifically to Charon and Leo is weird and pretty bad for the Bellus family. Sure, the two did good work fulfilling their request, but as a commission fee, that's too much. For a top graduate of the Imperial Academy to make this call, that's way too generous. Rohan explains it's to win favor with the two while they're young. Pale's like, you're not even pretending. Rohan keeps going, saying he's investing in the two who will lead the fortress one day. Pale says he's shameless but respects it, a bold move, and Baron Bellis is lucky to have such a sharp son. Rohan laughs, saying he's nowhere near as brilliant as Pale, obviously. Then Rohan says it's time to hear what the kids think. Karen, of course, has dollar signs in his eyes, and Leo's just wondering why he's grinning like a lunatic again. Charon says he'll gladly accept. They can keep building a strong partnership, and it's truly an honor to work with such a great house. Bro is lying through his teeth, he just wants the cash. Back at the station, Leo tells Karen he's got a question, how are they splitting the shares they got? Karen casually says naturally he'll take 9, and Leo gets 1. Leo's like, are you really taking that much? Karen asks why he's shocked. Leo says they've been getting along pretty well lately, so how could he say something like that? But Leo doesn't even want to argue about it and just accepts the deal. Charon tells him to remember what happens if he changes his mind later. Pale is watching this, saying when they were younger, they used to fight constantly, but now they become inseparable. Folks, this man is delusional. He's only seeing what he wants to see. Charon literally just scammed Leo out of 90% of the shares. These two are not inseparable. One's a scheming businessman, and the other's getting played at every turn. So the scene cuts to the two brothers talking, and Leo's absolutely spiraling. He's like, bro, I can't believe we're actually going to the capital. I've only heard rumors about this place. I don't know anything. What the hell am I supposed to do? And Charon's just standing there like, dude, relax. But Leo's not having it. He's like, we're about to meet the Emperor, the actual Emperor. I think I'm allowed to panic a little. Then his brain does a complete flip, and he starts getting pumped, talking about fancy social parties and how the capital is apparently loaded with beautiful women. Karen just sighs, and suddenly Sabina appears out of nowhere. She's all excited, saying the capital Dacis is an absolute blast, with tons of people, and a bunch of them are crazy strong. Leo looks up confused, like, wait, what are you even doing here? And she's like, oh, I came to celebrate your first mission. Now where are your wine goblets? Karen gives her the most deadpan look and goes, why the hell would you look for wine goblets in a 1-3-year-old's room? And this woman, without missing a beat, just shrugs and says, listen, as long as it holds wine, any cup works. She tosses them random cups and turns to Leo, asking if he's ever had a drink. Leo admits he's had a few sips because of Karen, and Sabina sighs, calling Karen out for making his little brother an accomplice in his wine-stealing crimes. But Leo's like, hey, better if we get in trouble together. Sabina pours him a drink and tells him not to hesitate since the master's pouring. She gets a bit sentimental, saying both of them grew up so well. Karen thanks her, and she keeps going, saying it's been 3 years since she promised to train him. And honestly, she's kinda sad she won't get to see the absolute chaos he's about to unleash in the capital. Leo mentions he heard she's heading back to the North Sea soon, and then this kid just starts crying, asking if they'll never see each other again. Sabina immediately roasts him, saying with that level of emotional fragility, there's no way he'll even be able to talk to women at capital parties. Leo gets all embarrassed, and she drops another bomb. She tells him if he does go to parties, he should probably avoid going with Charon. Leo's confused, like, why? And she's like, well, considering his looks, his talent, and that silver tongue, I think you can figure it out. And it hits Leo like a brick. His brother's going to steal all the attention. He looks at Charon and puts his hand on his shoulder, joking that Charon's really out here ruining his marriage chances. Charon fires back and tells Leo to shut up and drink. Meanwhile, we cut to Halo, who's also drinking because apparently this entire family has issues. There's a knock. It's Pale. Halo tells him to come in, and Pale asks if he called. Halo confirms and brings up how he heard Pale wrap negotiations with Bellis, and apparently they agree to hand over their share to the boys, which is pretty wild. Pale explains the young Baron's opinion had serious influence, and Bellis called it an investment for the future. Halo is impressed, saying Bellis' son is sharp, and having solid allies never hurts. He tells Pale he's putting the whole Bellis situation on him, and Pale says he'll handle it. Halo pours him a drink. Pale thanks him but gets serious, saying his father doesn't just hand out praise for no reason, so there must be something else. He guesses it's probably about Charon's capital trip. Halo confirms, pointing out the Emperor's never directly summoned anyone except him, so Charon getting called is extremely weird. Pale says he figured. Halo continues, saying during their private meeting, he saw it again, that look of fear in the Emperor's eyes. The kind that comes from knowing Halo overthrew the previous evil Emperor and worrying he might do the same to him. That's why Halo thinks there might be other political forces involved. Pale asks if he thinks it's political games, and Halo says absolutely. Pale points out that considering all the powerful houses gathering in the capital's political scene, Halo could have just refused the Emperor's request but didn't. He asks if he's allowed to know why. Halo laughs and says he wants to see what Charon's really made of. Pale is caught off guard, and Halo explains Charon was chosen by the Ancestor's blade, So whether he likes it or not, he's destined to be at the center of their family. And as a member of House Reston, he's going to face constant pressure and threats from outside. That's exactly why Halo didn't refuse. If Karen's shouldering their house's future, he needs to prove he can handle it. He asks Pale if he's worried about Karen. Pale immediately starts chugging his drink so hard he chokes, coughing everywhere. Halo laughs a bit, and Pale says he wants to be honest, he really trusts his son. Halo stares at him, smiling all proud, and says that's exactly what he wanted to hear. The next day, Sabina got a horse ready to bounce. Zeres asks if she's really not saying goodbye to the boys, and she says nah, she already shared drinks with them last night and had a good time. Zeres asks why everyone keeps stealing his liquor. Sabina says, besides, the boys are going to be busy leaving for the capital today, so it's better if she just slips out quietly. She'll look forward to seeing them again. Zeres says he'll keep the wine shelf stocked till then. As she's about to leave, she looks up at Karen's window, and he bows to her. She smiles, saying she'll see him next time. So she heads back to the North Sea, which is basically home to her. She told Karen he's always welcome to visit, and she'll be waiting with good wine. Karen thinks to himself that she really just left with only a letter, and now that she's gone, even his uncles might start making moves. Right on cue, Tails shows up saying their aunt left. Karen's like, speak of the devil. So we cut to a few days later, and the boys are finally ready for their big trip. They're waiting at the train station, and Heinrich's doing his whole responsible adult thing, asking if all the young master's luggage has been loaded. Everyone confirms it's good to go, and they keep fussing over their clothes and stuff. Karen's getting annoyed and asks Zeres why they have to make such a huge deal about them leaving. Zeres is like, because you guys are about to meet the Emperor as representatives of the entire family, you need to look your absolute best. Karen's like, okay, fair, but why the hell is Han's entire squad coming with us? Zeres says it's for their safety, but Han immediately calls him out, saying it's more like Zeres is worried Karen's going to cause trouble. Karen tells him to shut up, complaining that with all these annoying people tagging along, this trip's going to be a headache. We get a flashback to when Tails approached him. They exchanged greetings, and Tails asked if he was heading to the capital. Karen confirmed, and Tails said he actually had a favor to ask. Karen's like, what is it? And Tails drops it. He hopes Karen won't behave in the capital the way he's been acting at the fortress. He says he knows Karen understands exactly what he means, so he won't elaborate further. Karen's response, okay, so you're basically just telling me outright that you've been spying on me. Tails doesn't even deny it. He says there are tons of enemies in the capital who want to tear their family apart, so if Karen gives them even the slightest excuse, Tails will punish him personally. Karen thanks him for the kind words, saying he'll totally live up to those expectations. Tails says goodbye and tells him to come back safe and sound. Karen watches him leave and just laughs to himself, thinking, punish me? Does this guy really think he can suppress me just because he's the first prince? He's already plotting, saying he'll make that arrogant face twist in pain, telling Tails to just wait for the future. Back to the present. Preparations are done and ready. Karen tells Hans that if he causes any trouble, he won't let it slide. Just then, the big guy from before comes running in and apologizes for being late and thanks Karen for giving him another chance. Karen, being Karen, says the truth is he's only bringing him to the capital so he can throw him in prison and tells him not to let his guard down. Then an announcement goes off saying everyone needs to board. Hans tells Zeres they're heading out now, and Zeres tells both of them to make sure not to cause trouble in the capital. Karen's like, anyone who sees us will think we're a bunch of delinquents. Zeres drops some wisdom about how a cracked bowl leaks inside as well as outside, but says it's time for them to go. Before they can leave, they hear Pale come running, saying how he barely made it in time. Karen's surprised, saying he didn't know his dad was at the fortress. Pale explains that his grandfather called him there, but more importantly, he wanted to see Karen one more time before he left. He also mentions that Karen's grandfather on his mother's side is looking forward to his arrival in the capital. Karen says he can't wait to see him too, and he bets Grandpa's prepared a bunch of gifts. Pale smiles, putting his hand on his son's shoulder, telling him to please return safely and to not cause too much trouble. Then the scene shifts to Tails' room, and that bastard got the news from his informants that Karen and Leo had left the capital. Then the messenger adds that he got solid news that the second prince's wife is plotting something in the capital. But Tails is like, not my problem. I don't need to get involved. The train finally leaves, and Karen's like, about damn time. He asks Hans how long it takes to get to the capital. Hans says about 6 hours, and they'll be passing through the TB autonomous territory. Karen's like, what's that? And Leo, being the nerd he is, jumps in, asking if that's the unusual city where commoners actually get to elect their own mayor and where commerce and industry are way more developed than farming. Karen asks if that's the place where the most money in the Empire circulates. Hans confirms it, explaining that money equals power. There they wield massive influence in the Empire because of their capital, but they also get heavily scrutinized by lords from other regions who are probably jealous as hell. Charon says he remembers learning that sometimes serfs escape tyrannical lords and flee to that territory. Hans tells him they're actually on good terms with their fortress. Sometimes the territory even commissions large-scale requests from their knights. Charon's intrigued, saying if he gets the chance, he'd like to visit sometime. The train announcer says they'll soon be entering the territory, and Charon's already plotting, saying maybe he'll sneak away after the official schedule's done. Leo says he wants to go too, but then he suddenly hears something. He looks over and sees his sword reacting to something. His eyes go wide because when his sword reacts like this, it means there's danger nearby. He starts running through possibilities in his head. Did Tails or Raphael plant someone in their group? But nah, there's no way they're that stupid. Then it hits him what it must mean. He urgently tells Hans to contact the territory immediately. Hans is confused, like, why? And Charon says there's no time to explain, they need to alert everyone to prepare for an attack. Hans starts making the calls, and Charon's thinking to himself that if the threat is from outside rather than inside, how exactly do they plan to attack a moving train? Cut to the answer. We see a fuse laid out on the ground, and there's a whole line of explosive barrels set up on the tracks. So we're back at the Tebi territory, and these guys are in full panic mode because the National Tax Service is absolutely demolishing them. One dude admits he got caught laundering money like, bro, way to snitch on yourself, and now everyone's yelling at each other. They're all turning to the mayor like, say something. But this man just sits there having the biggest existential crisis of his life. He's like, why did I even take this job? I should have just retired after being Minister of Finance and lived my best life. He thought TB was going to be this attractive city full of opportunities for everyone, where status didn't matter. Instead, it's just commoners, merchants, and nobles throwing hands 24/7. The place is a complete dumpster fire. Then some dude bursts in yelling for the mayor, runs over, and whispers something in his ear before bouncing. Everyone at the table is like, bro, what was so important that you had to interrupt our meeting? Is this about the tax investigation? And the mayor just casually says, nah, it's not something as measly as that. He strikes a match all dramatically, and they're confused as hell, asking why he suddenly doesn't care about the taxes anymore. Wait, did they cancel the investigation? And the mayor drops the bombshell. Not exactly. I told the tax investigators to screw off. Oh, and 5 minutes ago, the train heading to the capital just exploded. You know, the one with the Grand Duke's grandchildren on board. The whole room freezes. They're begging him to explain, and he looks at them like they're idiots. Do you really not understand? We're all dead. The Grand Duke's grandson was on that train. Cut to Charon waking up and seeing Hans standing over him. Hans asks if he's okay, and Charon's like, yeah, I'm fine, while casually bandaging up Leo. Hans asks for a situation report, and they tell him 11 people are injured, 1 severe, 2 light injuries. The severe one is Dale, and 2 people in their car are straight up dead. Charon mentions even Yor is responding, which means things are bad. Charon asks Hans where they are, and Hans says about 10 kilometers from TB territory. He says he already contacted them before Charon and the others woke up, so backup should be mobilizing. Hans tells Charon that he and the squad will buy time while Charon and Leo run as far as they can. He asks if Charon understands, but Charon's just staring at his blade because it's reacting again, which means the attackers are close. Then he spots their feet outside the window. He tells Hans, sorry, bro, but running's not happening. Hans is like, why not? And Charon's response is cold. These bastards destroy the Emperor's railway. That's literally treason. We're not running from trash like that. He turns to Leo and asks if he can still fight. Leo nods. Charon instantly cuts the legs off one of the attackers outside, saying there's only one choice here. The dude falls to the ground, and as he looks up at Charon glaring down at him, Charon sends him flying with the next attack, finishing his sentence, we get rid of them all right here. Charon, Hans, and Leo step off the train, and Charon's like, there's more than I thought. All the knights exit too, and now we've got this epic WWE stare down happening. Hans says they're all at least 3-star level, and Charon agrees, noting the guy at the front is at least 6-star. The lead attacker tells Charon to drop his weapon and surrender, his voice clearly altered by magic. He promises if Charon cooperates, they'll let the knights and servants go. Charon instantly figures out their goal, capture him alive. He asks Hans if he knows what that means. Hans is like, surely you're not thinking. And Charon cuts him off. Of course I am. They can't kill me, and I can kill them. What more do I need? Hans and Leo just stare at him like he's completely lost his mind. Charon charges forward, cutting down one attacker instantly. Everyone else rushes in knights versus assassins, full chaos mode. Charon yells that they need to push into the backline and wipe them out all at once, but he notices the assassins hesitating. He's like, what? Should I go instead? The assassins start complaining that this wasn't part of the deal, but their leader tells them to step aside because he'll handle Charon personally. Charon's thinking, finally, about time, but then Hans jumps in front of him, which catches him completely off guard. Hans tells Charon this opponent is too dangerous and to step back. The assassin leader tells Hans he's rushing to his death, and Hans just smirks, saying, "Guess we'll find out." So Hans doesn't waste a single second and launches himself into the air. The assassin gets ready, and they start going at it in the next moment. Sparks are flying everywhere. But then the assassin just casually deflects Hans's blade, sending our boy crashing to the ground like a rag doll. Hans hits the floor and immediately realizes, wait a damn minute, because that deflection was too clean. He picks himself up and goes full detective mode, saying based on those movements, he now knows exactly who this is. This 6-star bastard is Shi Hakim, the Knight of the Power Sultanate within the Empire. Now here's the thing. The Empire and the Sultanate have this whole non-aggression pact going on, so they're supposed to be chill with each other. So Hans is sitting there like, why the hell are you coming after Charon of all people? The Sultanate and the Ducal House have zero beef, but he knows he won't get answers standing around, so he's got to beat it out of him. Meanwhile, the battle's actually turning around. The young masters are holding their ground surprisingly well, but Hakim's not having any of this distraction. He charges straight at Hans, putting him on the defensive and asking if he really has time to be spacing out right now. Hans fires back, saying his whole formation has already collapsed, and drops his government eyed, then absolutely unleashes his aura, sending Hakim flying backwards and hitting the reset button on this whole fight. Hans warns him that resistance is pointless and he should just surrender while he still can. Hakim looks around, realizes his squad's been wiped, and Hans tells him, "Look, man, if you surrender now, at least you get to keep your life. No need to die on foreign soil for nothing." But Hakime's on that loyalty grind, saying he has zero interest in trying to convince someone who refuses to understand, so he's just going to complete his mission no matter what. Then his eyes instantly turn black and red, and Hans recognizes it immediately burst blood vessels. As Hakime's aura starts shifting to a completely different color, Hans explains this is mana backlash, meaning this dude has absolutely no intention of making it out alive. Hans realizes at this rate, not only is capturing him impossible, but the young masters are in serious danger too. So he does what any reasonable person would do and lets his own mana run completely rampant, preparing to tank whatever's coming. His eyes turn bright blue as he gets ready. Hakim closes in, and Hans is about to go full Super Saiyan when suddenly Charon chimes in, sounding absolutely disappointed. He's like, "Hold up, I thought I came along to keep you from causing trouble, but it looks like you're the one making a mess. Did you already give up on your babysitting duties?" Hakim spins around, shocked that Charon's actually attacking, wondering what the hell he's doing. Charon just says, "I'll do whatever I want," and charges in, sending Hakim's entire arm flying off. Yeah, just casually disarmed him literally. Hakim backs up immediately and calls Charon a straight-up monster. Charon's like, "Is that supposed to be a compliment? I'll take it." But then he notices his blade starting to resonate again. He realizes there's still a threat and asks Hakim what exactly he's scheming. Hans is just sitting there processing everything. Hakim says he bears no grudge and apologizes, and Charon's confused as hell, asking what he's even apologizing for. Then Hakime's mana starts going even more rampant, and Hans instantly connects the dots, screaming at all the squad members to protect Leo. Leo's just standing there looking absolutely clueless, zero survival instincts on this kid while everyone jumps to shield him. Hans does the same thing to Charon, tackling her to the ground. Charon's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And Hans tells him it's a self-destruction spell, and this is happening because of his own incompetence. The mana keeps swirling more and more violently, and we see Hakim's body literally starting to fall apart, followed by a massive explosion. Hans throws himself over Charon to shield her. Then Charon hears this voice in his head calling him foolish, saying since he let them taste fresh night blood after so long, they'll return the favor. The voice warns him if he doesn't want his eyeballs to burst, he better close them tight right now. Eventually, Charon comes to and starts waking Hans up, asking how long he's going to keep lying there, and literally kicks him. Hans is like, "I just threw myself to protect you. Where's the respect?" And Charon hits him with, "I never asked you to save me." The voice speaks again, saying if not for them, things would have ended way worse. Charon pauses and thinks, wait, where the hell is this voice even coming from? He looks down at his blade as the voice continues, saying Hakim has probably been reduced to nothing but scraps of flesh, and Charon should be grateful. Charon just ignores it, but the sword keeps going, asking if he's even listening. Charon's just surprised, saying, "Hold up, this sword can talk, and it's talking way too much." Turns out our boy had no idea he's been carrying around an ego sword this whole time. And just to put things in perspective, we get a comparison shot showing the second explosion was absolutely massive compared to the first one. Cut to a bit later, and the soldiers are helping each other crawl out of wreckage, but our boy Charon is still completely hung up on the talking sword situation. He's like, "Yeah, I've heard about this blacksmiths who lose their minds end up forging blades out of actual souls, and apparently those can talk to you. Guillotine immediately threatens him, saying if Charon compares him to that cursed sword one more time, he'll cut his damn head off. Charon fires back, asking, if you cut my head off over something that petty, why'd you even bother saving me? Guillotine calls him pathetic, explaining that if they hadn't wasted all their magic power saving his ass from that explosion, they would have already taken his head. Another carriage starts rolling up, and Hans immediately goes on alert, wondering if it's more enemies. But Charon says, nah, definitely not. Guillotine chimes in, complaining that all the magic they had stored up is completely gone and they're exhausted. Charon asks if the only way for them to recharge is by cutting down enemies, and Guillotine casually mentions that if Charon wanted, he could also absorb the magic in his blood. A knight hops out and introduces himself as Captain Hyrie of the Vigilante Corps from the TB territory. Charon immediately says, hold up, if you're craving your master's blood, you are a demon's sword after all. Hans starts introducing himself while Guillotine's like, that's it, I'm going back to the scabbard. I can't talk to this idiot anymore. Charon says that's perfect because the sword needs to shut up anyway. He sheathes Guillotine as Hans introduces Charon to Hyrie. Hyrie says the TB territory feels responsible for dragging them into this mess, and by order of the mayor, they're here to safely escort the members of the Great Duke's house. Charon says, cool, in that case, they've got a lot of injured people, so they'll be counting on them. As they hitch a ride in the carriage, we see Charon sitting in the back, absolutely drenched in blood. Hans says he wants to double-check something. Does Charon really think they shouldn't just head back to the fortress? The vigilantes and knights are still investigating the attack site, but who knows when they'll get results, and it's way too early to assume the danger's past. Charon says it's fine. They already contacted Xeras before leaving, and he should be on his way soon. He tells Hans his problem is that he thinks too much. The Imperial Guard from the capital must have left too, so there's nothing to worry about. But more importantly, he wants to know about the guy who blew himself up. Does Hans know him? Hans confirms that yeah, he was a 6-star knight from the Pabar Sultanate named Hakim. Charon processes this, saying the Pabar Sultanate is their neighboring nation beyond the Desert of Silence in the Eastern Empire, and he wonders if the non-aggression pact is finally falling apart. This is getting more complicated by the second. Hans agrees that relations between the Empire and the Sultanate have been getting worse, but this type of stunt isn't usually their style. Charon points out that regardless, the mere fact this happened is reason enough for war, then asks Leo if he agrees. Leo says he does, but the truth is he actually wasn't listening at all. We see his hand shaking as he holds a uniform completely soaked in blood. He says he can't get his hands to stop shaking. Charon says he understands. It was Leo's first time killing someone, so no wonder. Taking a life isn't something you really get used to, but he's got to overcome it because that's what living means. Charon agrees and then looks out at the city, saying it sure looks nice. Hans agrees. The mayor welcomes them to the territory, saying it's such a relief they made it safely. The territory will do everything possible to uncover who's behind this attack, and of course they'll fully cooperate with House Reston's investigation. He starts saying, also, but when Charon cuts him off, saying he knows they had nothing to do with the attack, Hans agrees, telling the mayor, whose name is Gren, that he can rest easy. Hans mentions Gren seems quite different from back when he was the Minister of Finance. Gren tells him not to bring that up because he regrets accepting this damn position. He apologizes for rambling in front of noble guests, and Charon tells him to speak freely. She'd rather not hear stiff formalities from an elder. Gren asks how he could possibly speak casually to someone from the Great Duke's bloodline. Charon tells him to show his sincerity by kneeling. Wait, no. Gren says he misspoke, and he'll gladly accept his kindness. Charon says good, and they should move somewhere else to continue this conversation. We see Charon pouring Gren a glass of wine, laying out his theory. They were attacked by smugglers because the attackers didn't use magic power. They used explosives that destroyed the railway, and he knows such explosives can be obtained without going through the official armaments procurement agency. Gren confirms that's true. Charon continues, explaining the armaments procurement agency is under the Empire's strict supervision, so stealing their explosives stockpile is nearly impossible. But what if the explosives were smuggled from outside the Empire? For example, explosives manufactured in the Sultanate. Gren realizes where this is going. Only the Empire and the Sultanate can produce high-grade explosives. Charon asks if some merchants in TB are involved in this smuggling, because that would put Gren in a very difficult position. Gren is surprised by how sharp Charon's reasoning is and admits the likelihood is high. Charon says if he didn't agree, he could be branded an accomplice, and with idiots running smuggling rings, it's way too easy to get scapegoated. He tells Gren to keep one thing in mind. Gren nervously asks what. Charon leans in and says this incident has harmed both the fortress and its knights. Gren realizes he's being cornered to be entangled with House Reston, who repays favors tenfold but grudges 100-fold. If he doesn't cooperate, he's finished. Trying to change the subject, Gren asks how Charon's father is doing. Charon asks if he even knows his father, and Gren says, of course, they're on brotherly terms after all. Karen says the sudden theatrics confirm he's a politician indeed. Gren sweats but says performance is the most important thing for humans. Then Gren's assistant bursts in, saying they finally got a call from the capital. Gren figures it's about time the Imperial Guard departed. The assistant says it's not just the Imperial Guard, the Commissioner of the National Tax Service himself has departed, leading Special Division 1. Gren's face goes pale because this man is called the Demon King. His name is Commissioner Gale Farishin of the National Tax Service, and Gren's panicking, asking if Gale is really coming all this way personally. He asks Charon if he already knew about this, and Charon casually says, yeah, his grandfather adores him and will put in maximum effort to save his grandson. So basically, the taxman cometh, and he's not playing around. So we're cutting to the other side of TB territory now, and people are just casually walking around when suddenly they spot a whole army of armed soldiers marching through. And in the back, yeah, that's Gale himself. Some folks hiding in the alleyways are whispering like, damn, he got here fast, because apparently this situation involves family, and when family's involved, Grandpa doesn't waste time. Meanwhile, back at the mayor's office, these merchant guild bastards are losing their minds, asking why there's a sudden tax audit and why it has to start right now. Like, bro, you can't just spring this on them without warning. They need time to hide all their shady dealings. First, even their puppet mayor should have bought them some time to cover their tracks. And to make matters worse, it's Special Division 1 doing the audit, the absolute worst people for this job. Gran's sitting there thinking these idiots really don't get how screwed they are. Even after all the slack, he's cut them. That's when Karen steps in with a reality check, reminding everyone that they didn't just commit some minor crime, they destroyed Imperial Railroad tracks, attacked the grandson of Duke Reston and Fortress personnel, and did it all with smuggled explosives that probably came through their merchant guild. So yeah, everybody should probably understand why the Emperor's personal tax hitmen are knocking at their door right about now. The merchants finally realize they're cooked, and one of them, trying to save face, says what he meant was they should have had time to prepare properly. Charon asks for his name, and this dude actually gives it, Viscount Humorer of the Humor Merchant Guild. Charon just smiles and says, cool, I'll make sure to mention you specifically to my grandfather, you know, the Commissioner of the National Tax Service. Homeboy's face probably went white as a sheet, immediately backtracking like, wait, let's reconsider this whole thing, but it's too late because the door swings open and Special Division 1 walks in. Everyone freezes as Gale announces that as of this moment, they're conducting a full tax audit on all the merchant guilds. The National Tax Service got tipped off about smuggling, tax evasion, and illicit wealth, and the Emperor himself ordered this investigation. Karen's just standing there thinking his grandfather looks way better in a military uniform than some boring civil servant outfit. On the side, Leo whispers to Hans, asking if Division 1 is really that scary, and Hans explains that Division 1 handles the big fish, major merchant guilds, and nobles, and because they're dealing with powerful people, they can literally mobilize the Imperial Guard if needed. Basically, these guys are the IRS of the fantasy world. Leo's like, so basically you get your ass beat if you don't pay your taxes? As their chit-chat was going, Gale walks over to Charon, saying it's been 3 years, and asking how he's been. Charon respectfully tells his grandfather he's doing well and he's happy to see him. Grandpa asks if he needs medical treatment, but Charon insists he's fine. Then Gale gets down to business, asking if Charon has any suspects in mind. Charon says no, explaining that if his uncles were behind this, they'd never leave evidence, but whoever did plan this left traces everywhere, almost like they wanted everyone to think it was the Paber Sultanate. They're not even trying to hide their identity. Gale pats his head and says he knows Charon wants to hunt down the culprits himself and make them pay, but as his grandfather, he's against it. It's not that he doubts Charon's abilities, the kid's talented, but the world is huge and full of monsters. Plus, there are still people gunning for Charon right here, so they should stay put and head to the capital tomorrow morning like the Emperor commanded. The adults will handle this mess. Charon smiles and says, of course, I'll stay right here. But his grandfather can immediately tell he's full of shit because Charon's eyes are literally glowing with aura while he's grinning like a psychopath. In his mind, he is thinking, yeah, that boy's definitely not staying put. Cut to the residence of some merchant named Aun, and this man is in full panic mode, frantically loading everything onto carriages. He runs outside yelling at his people, asking why they haven't left yet. They tell him they're done loading, and his wife asks if he's really not coming with them. He tells her not to worry, he'll follow soon, and as the carriages roll out, they beg him to hurry. Once they're gone, Aun realizes he needed to get them out first. Then he notices someone watching from a rooftop, muttering that the tail is on them and there can't be any mistakes, keep tracking. Back at Charon's place, our boy's in the middle of the night polishing guillotine, and Xeris walks in saying he can't believe Charon's out here sharpening his blade at this hour, asking if he's planning to cause trouble again. Charon fires back, asking if Xeris came all this way just to nag him. Xeris just stares at him for a second before saying he's only here because the commissioner forbade Charon from going out. Karen asks if Zeres is going to try to stop him too. Zeres says nah, he's just here to deliver orders from the head of the house. So listen up. The moment he receives this command, he needs to find the culprits and make them pay in blood for every life they took and show them exactly what the laws of the fortress are all about. Karen starts laughing, saying he was already planning on it anyway, and he'll gladly accept this mission, and immediately, Zeres knows that it's going to be a long night. Cut to later, and we're back in the city. Karen and Leo are walking through town when Leo asks if they really have to go this far. Karen says if they want to meet the informant, they have to go where the black market is. Leo's like, okay, fine, but why does he have to play the servant? Karen says it's because his haircut is absolutely diabolical. Plus, if two noble kids are wandering around without attendants, that's mad suspicious. Leo asks again why he has to be the servant, and Karen's like, bro, I literally just told you. As they walk down this sketchy alley, Leo says the place feels unsettling. Karen tells him if he's scared, they can turn back now. Then some dude appears, saying this isn't the kind of place young lords should be visiting, and if they came here, it must mean something. Karen immediately reaches for his blade, but the guy says, chill, Zeres sent him. He introduces himself as Julio and says a carriage is ready with soundproofing artifacts so they can talk freely. Karen figures out Julio is from TB and asks how someone local became an informant for the Reston family. Julio says he's just repaying a kindness Zeres showed him as a kid. Karen gets straight to business. He's got intel that someone's planning to attack the Reston family with smuggled explosives on their way to the capital. Does Julio know who? Julio says, yeah, only two trading companies deal with black market explosives, Kurua and Kigo. Kurua has been firmly established in TB, but recently withdrew from the black market. Karen asks about Kigo, and Julio explains they're a company of former slaves who'll take any job for the right price. Oh, and they left the city earlier today. Leo realizes that's around when they got attacked. Karen says that makes them very suspicious, a group of ex-slaves desperate for money. Leo asks where they should investigate, since there's no time for both. Karen says the answer's obvious. The more desperate they are, the more reckless they'll be. Back at Gren's place, he asks Gale if it's really okay to leave the young master alone. Gale says his in-law sent him a whole letter begging for this favor, so he has no choice. Turns out Karen actually asked Gale to find some excuse to hold his brother back because otherwise he would have moved on his own without the Duke's permission. Gale's surprised, but Gren says not to worry. Karen's already proven his skills. Gale reminds him Karen's only 13, but Gren shrugs it off, saying, for a genius, age is just a number. Gale explains TB is dangerous. Companies here have bribed central politicians to expand power, and many powerful houses are wary of House Reston. That's why the Emperor intervened, to stop the Empire from being run solely for profit. Gren thought he'd enjoy his later years in peace, but nope. Then Gren drops another bomb. Sir Mason is in Tebi. Gale's shocked, asking if he means the unyielding shield, Mason, the 8-star knight. If that's true, they're screwed. Back to our boys, Julio says they've arrived. Karen asks if this is the only entrance, and Julio confirms. Karen realizes in an emergency they could just seal it off from inside. Julio pulls up a book, activating a hidden lever, very fitting for a black market, and says it's time to go down. As they descend, Leo gets the feeling they won't be getting in easily, and sure enough, two guards block them. They recognize Julio, asking what he's doing here. Julio says he brought guests. The guards say, yeah, they know he only deals with big clients, but unfortunately the chairman ordered no clients today. Julio asks why, and they say it's just orders from above. He presses for a reason, but they don't know either and tell him to leave while they're being polite. One guard starts drawing his blade, and Karan asks if he's really trying to cut them down. He reaches for his own sword, telling him to try it because he wants to see what happens. Leo's like, why are you pressing him so much? But Karan keeps going, saying if he's going to do it, then hurry up and draw. Then Karen suddenly calls Leo by Yura's name, telling him to go for the second plan. Leo's completely confused because there was no second plan. Meanwhile, the guards reach for their blades, and so does Leo. Realizing Karen just made that up on the spot, the guard who drew first says he has no choice, but the other tells him to wait. Then Guillotine chimes in, saying just so Karen knows, he's rejecting the blood of bastards like these on his behalf. Karen's confused, asking how he's talking when he's not even pulled out yet, and Guillotine says as long as Karen's touching the scabbard, it's possible. Karen swings first, and the guard blocks, Karen says, must be convenient, as we see the dude's sword literally broken in half. The other guard asks what the hell he's doing but freezes because Leo charges straight at him. Julio's impressed, saying this is exactly the skill you'd expect from the young wolves of the Reston family. Leo also disarms his guard but tells Karen to give him a heads up next time he pulls something like this. Karen says he looked like he was enjoying it, though. Karen says they should get this hostage situation started, and Julio calls him amazing. The guards ask if he really thinks he can get away with this and returns safely. Then the guard's chest lights up red, and a woman tells them that's enough. Stop being so rough with her, men. Karen asks if this means the president of Kigo cares for her underlings. She says, of course, these people have been with me through the hardest times, so I can't let them be torn apart by some overexcited young wolf. Leo notices she knows who they are, but she welcomes them in any way. Karen says that's nice, but they don't have trust yet, so her boys are staying as his hostages. She says he sure has a fondness for taking hostages, just like the rumors say, and she'll be waiting. She tells a guard named Cal to guide them well. Back to Gale. He says if Mason's here, it means one thing: he's with the Emperor's bastard troublemaker, the Sixth Prince. Gale's worried because the Emperor personally removed Mason from the Imperial Guard to protect the Sixth Prince, but this guy's actions are incredibly unpredictable. Gren figures since he's a mage, he probably just came for the variety of goods here. But Gale's worried about the possibility of him and Charon running into each other. Gren says surely nothing would come of it, and Gale warns him Charon is the type to make trouble even when there is none. When they enter the room, Charon's surprised to see a kid with a gold mask sitting on a couch. The kid asks if he's Charon, and Charon realizes the power he's feeling from the guard behind this kid belongs to someone who's achieved the 8th star, the same level as Xeras and Sabina. There's only a handful of 8-star masters in the whole empire, so who is this guy? Leo notices too, and Charon figures he's definitely no ordinary master. Charon asks if he's the president of Kigo. The kid says no, he just came to see his sister. Charon realizes this means he's the president's younger brother. The kid says more like sworn siblings, but nice to meet him. Charon decides to press his luck and charges in using one of the fortress's techniques. Everyone's shocked he'd do something this crazy. The kid starts laughing, telling Mason to look, he's become a hostage. He says this is more thrilling than he thought, and coming to tea was a great idea. Revelio asks if Charon's going to make a death threat or ransom demand next, but Charon's thinking golden eyes, jet black hair, plus an 8th star knight named Mason. That means the one he's holding is the 6th prince. Revelio asks if he wants to go with overthrow of the Imperial Palace as his demand. Charon thinks this guy is definitely not sane. Just then a baddie walked in, folks, and she is an elf. She looks at our boy, saying that it seems he has changed hostages while she was away, and asks him if he cares to explain. But nah, our boy just says that he swapped for a more expensive hostage, asking what she thinks. She doubts he's that expensive, but wonders why he's suddenly using formal speech. Charon says it's because she's an elf, so she must be older, but he can also feel immense magic power from her, and similar power from Revelio too. They're both mages, though she's far more skilled. She says if he's here looking for the source of explosives used in the train attack, it wasn't them, so he can lower his sword and talk normally. Charon asks why he should believe that. She says if she attacked their family, she wouldn't have been careless enough to leave evidence. As she shows her magic prowess, Charon realizes with that much power, she's at least a 7th circle mage after putting up the spectacle. She asks him if he's in the mood to talk now or if he still wants to try this hostage route. So we cut to later when things have finally chilled out and Revelio and Mason take off their masks. Meanwhile, Mommy Elf is serving them tea, explaining that yeah, they handle explosives, but it's all for Rio's experiments. She makes it painfully clear that the bombs that were used to attack the Reston family were not theirs. They're scientists, not terrorists. Karen immediately goes, was it the Karua merchants then? But she shuts that down so fast, saying those cowards couldn't pull off something like this even if you held a gun to their heads. Then Karen notices Revelio getting way too cozy next to him and tells him to move his damn arm. Revelio's like, what's wrong with being a little close? From now on, you can just call me Rio, like all my close friends do. Karen fires back with close my ass. Mason jumps in, saying Karen needs to watch his mouth around the prince, but Rio tells him to chill and stop being so uptight. Mason's having a full mental breakdown because he can't believe his brother's youngest grandson is such a brat. Meanwhile, Karen's brain is running overtime, wondering if maybe this guy knows Halo. Before things could turn uncivil, Mommy Elf cuts through all the chaos, saying it's time to get back to business, and apologizes for the late intro. Her name's Poina, and she is the president of this place, and she's honored to meet the grandsons of the continent's greatest hero, Halo. She confirms again that the explosives weren't theirs, but she knows who the actual culprit is. There's just one tiny condition. Karen's like, yeah, I figured. Let's hear it. And here's where it gets absolutely wild. Her condition is that they become friends with Rio. Karen immediately sees the massive problem here. Getting tangled up with the Imperial family is messy as hell. If people see the ducal family and an Imperial prince getting friendly, nobody's going to think it's just two kids hanging out. Political implications everywhere. But Leo's like, so what? Kids can be friends if they want. Besides, it's actually more advantageous for the Reston family. Karen asks how the hell that makes sense, and Leo explains that the Reston family is going to have to make its move soon anyway, and this friendship will put the Imperial family and central nobles on high alert. Charon admits he's not a complete lunatic, but still wonders why Leo's going this far for them. Just then, Rio casually mentions that he's willing to do anything that screws over his father. His actual dream in life is to be a first-class disappointment. He asks if Charon understands, and Charon's just like, no, you're certifiably insane. Poina interrupts, asking what Charon's going to do since the Knights and TB situation is dragging on and they're running out of time today. Charon's confused about what she means, so she explains that the Imperial Guards who came with Special Unit 1 have a completely different objective than what everyone thinks. Charon asks what that is, and she drops some knowledge. The grandsons of the Reston family got attacked, yet the Imperial Guards are actively trying to solve the case. She wants to know if he ever thought about why that's suspicious as hell. Charon catches on, asking if she's saying the Imperial Guards worked with the culprit. She says that depends on who the culprit actually is, but what's crystal clear is that the Imperial Guard's objective is totally different from theirs. She slides over a document with everything they've tracked on the culprit's movements and asks if he'll accept her proposal. Charon just stares at it, processing. Cut to later, where people are frantically moving boxes while this guy, Aum, watches, stressed out of his mind, wondering if they can go any faster. Through his internal panic, we learn he was supposed to get a noble title, and all the evidence against him would vanish after the attack succeeded. He's crying about how the title he yearned for was right there, and now he's the one about to be taken care of, all because those damn brats survived. But hey, at least he evacuated his family first, so maybe it's a blessing? Then some guy runs in screaming that knights are storming the place, and Aun's immediately nervous, asking if it's the Imperial Guard. Instead, we hear Charon's voice casually commenting that the Aun merchants are working hard even at night. The assistant tells Aun that's not the Imperial Guard, and Charon says it's quite the busy household. Aun recognizes him as someone from the Reston family, and Charon confirms it, yep, he's the good-for-nothing noble that Aun tried to murder. Then Charon makes this cold observation for a man who tried to take another person's life. Aun sure seems to care an awful lot about his own family. Xeris says he brought what Charon asked for, and Charon thanks him. Then our boy holds up this bloody bag, asking Aun if he's curious about what's inside. Aun panics, asking if that's his family in there, and Charon tells him if he's so curious, he should look himself. When Aun opens it, he sees severed hands that he assumes belong to his family, and he completely breaks down. Charon slaps some sense into him, telling him to stop making a scene and asking if he really thinks those calloused, rough hands belong to his pampered family members. Aun's confused, asking whose hands they are, and then Charon delivers the twist they belong to the assassins that Aun's business partner sent to kill his family. Aun starts crying and thanking Charon for saving his family, but Charon tells him to stop celebrating. This man conspired with murderers, planned an attack on the Reston family, and people died because of his actions. Charon only saved Aun's family because they're innocent. Aun himself is absolutely not. So now he gets to spend the rest of his life in the underground fortress prison with endless torture. Fun times. Charon tells Xeris to take him away. Back to Mommy Elf. She mentions there are tons of rumors about the Emperor's failing health and wants to know from Leo what the actual situation is in the capital. Leo says it's complete chaos among the nobles. Only the old warmongers are having a field day, and the internal conflict with the Imperial Guards is getting worse. She notes that the clash between those who sided with the warmongers and those who haven't is intensifying. But thanks to her, Leo's gained a reliable supporter. He thanks her and confidently says that Charon is definitely on his side now because of his charms. Poina points out he wasn't like this when they first met, and Rio admits that's true. He explains that as soon as he arrived in TB territory after barely escaping internal strife, his mother was assassinated. If Mason hadn't been there, Leo probably would have followed her in death. If he hadn't met her in the city, he never would have learned magic. Just as the two of them shaped who he is today, Charon will also become an important person in his future. Back at the mayor's place, Gale is asking what the hell all this means. Gren says that publicly announcing the facts of the attacks and investigation details is too much. Gale agrees, saying if this gets out, it'll destroy the family's prestige, and asks if Gren's really okay with that. Gren wants to know if Charon's going to be held responsible for this mess. Charon says this isn't something he needs to take responsibility for, this is to make sure those behind the scenes can't even think about covering it up. Plus, Gren comes out looking like a righteous mayor who stands against injustice. So it's a win-win. Xeris remembers Halo telling him to let Charon do whatever he wants, and even though he has no clue what Charon's planning, since it's his master's order, he can't go against it. So everyone's just going to have to trust Charon on this one and see where this ride goes. Meanwhile, back at the Reston mansion, the butler walks in and tells Halo, "Yo, Charon sent a message." Halo's reading it like, wait, this little psycho wants to go public with everything? The investigation, the damages, all the dirty details. And the butler's just like, yup, that's exactly what he wants to do. Then Pale walks in, asking if someone called for him, and Halo fills him in on Charon's crazy plan. He mentions the council already promised full cooperation to prevent future terrorist attacks, then turns to Pale and asks "So what do you think about your son's master plan?" Pale reads through it, and immediately his eyes go wide because he sees what Charon's really doing here. This isn't just about revenge. This kid's about to completely destroy the political balance in TB. They're essentially giving real power back to a mayor who's been nothing but a glorified mascot this whole time. Halo nods, saying, "Yeah, these councilmen have been running this city like their personal playground for decades. But now everyone's going to know one of them literally funded a terrorist attack on the Reston family. That's game over for their reputation." He admits Charon's a reckless little brat who from time to time gives him reasons to have heart attacks. But damn, the kid got his revenge and boosted the family's political influence in one move. But Pale's not celebrating yet. He reminds Halo that Charon is 13 years old. They're putting the weight of political warfare on a child who should be worried about homework, not dismantling power structures. Halo just smirks and throws it back at him, saying, "Weren't you the one who told me to have faith in my son? You said, trust him. Let him walk his own path," he continues. "A wolf must walk a wolf's path. And yeah, I know you're getting cold feet watching your kid take his first steps into the wild, but maybe stick to your own advice and trust him till the end." Pale reluctantly agrees, and Halo gets this dangerous look in his eyes, saying this whole situation should send a nice clear message to everyone in the capital, especially those power-hungry Imperial Guard bastards. He adds that if someone else were handling this investigation, heads would literally be rolling in the streets right now. Then he tells Pale to buckle up and prepare for the storm, because it's time for House Reston to make its move again. Cut to Tebby, where Mayor Gren is giving his big dramatic public speech, going on about how ashamed he is that such a horrific incident happened in their city. A council member selling out his morals for power, trying to murder the grandson of Halo Reston, the continent's greatest hero. The citizens immediately start losing their absolute minds, screaming to throw out the corrupt councilman, calling for his head on a pike. Gren promises with everything he's got that he'll return power to the people and clean up this mess. Leo's watching from the sidelines and mutters that the mayor looks completely natural up there. Gale agrees, saying Gren's an excellent politician who never wastes a good opportunity. Leo asks if all politicians in the capital are this slick, and Gale laughs, saying hell no. Gren reached such a high position specifically because he's actually skilled enough to back up his ambitions. The mayor's way more dangerous than his friendly face suggests. Then Gale told them how he's genuinely shocked that a plan crafted by a 3-year-old got approved by the family patriarch himself. Halo must think really highly of Charon's abilities if he's willing to let him play politics at this level. At this rate, the kid might even get included in the line of succession. Whether that's going to be a blessing or a curse, only time will tell. Charon turns to Gale, looking a bit guilty, and asks if he's okay, since he got dragged into Reston family business. He mentions his mother told him Gale hates mixing personal interests with public duties, and he's worried he made him compromise his principles. But Gale waves it off, saying sometimes you have to break your own rules. And besides, the Emperor was already planning to check the powers here anyway, so everything worked out. He drops some wisdom. If your principles ever get in the way of doing the right thing, don't hesitate to smash through them. Then he says he's got something to handle before heading back to the capital and dips. Leo asks Charon what part of that speech got everyone so hyped. Charon explains it's simple psychology. The mayor just declared war on the established powers, and when firmly established powers collapse, regular people get opportunities to climb up. Of course, they're celebrating. Leo admits he doesn't really get it, and Charon tells him that's because he grew up sheltered like a flower in a greenhouse. Leo fires back, saying that's rich coming from someone born into literally the richest family on the continent. That night at Gren's place, Charon compliments the speech, saying thanks to him, everyone's got mad energy now. Gren says it was all thanks to Charon giving him the ammunition and a just cause to work with. Charon's like, thanks for putting it that way, and Gren says he's just stating facts. Then he asks about the night situation, and Charon confirms additional troops have already been dispatched from the fortress. Gren laughs his ass off, of course, the Duchy of Reston moves at lightning speed. Leo asks if this is what playing politics looks like, and Gren says they still need to prepare for tomorrow's trip to the capital, but they've already been held up too long. Charon says, actually, they have something for him first. Gren is curious, and Charon reaches into his outfit and pulls out a fat bag of cash, saying Gren's going to need funds here and there if he's planning to do great things. Gren's eyes practically bug out of his head. Charon casually explains it's just a little something from the profits of their magic stone mine in Beliz's territory, and oh yeah, this is their little secret. Leo, of course, is standing there like, I never agreed to this bribery scheme. Later, everyone's ready to head out. Xeris tells Charon the carriage is almost packed and the Imperial Guard will be escorting them to the capital. Charon says that doesn't feel right, but Xeris reminds him the Halo already approved it, so tough luck. Leo asks if Hans is injured, will Xeris come with them instead? Xeris says he'd love to, but he's been assigned to escort the prisoners and injured back, so Sir Hugo will handle their protection. Karen notes that Hugo is his eldest uncle's son and an absolute prodigy who reached the initial phase of 6-star at only 28 years old. Still, something about this whole setup feels off to Karen. Then a nice fancy-looking car pulls up with Rio hanging out the window waving and asking if they grabbed breakfast yet. Karen takes one look at it, turns to Zirez, and asks him if maybe they just can't go to the capital instead. But Zirez shuts that down immediately. They have to go. Then, being all friendly, Revelio asks our boy if he's excited to go to the capital together, and Karen's like, not really, and asks him what the hell he is doing here. Revelio explains he knew Karen wasn't exactly thrilled about getting babysat by the Imperial Guard. He totally gets it. They've got beef, but hey, no worries because he's here now to make it better. Then this random dude rolls up, apologizing for being late, saying he was wrapping up that whole destroyed railway mess. Revelio's cool with it and introduces him as Luke, who's all honored to be escorting the prestigious sons of House Reston to the capital. Meanwhile, Karen's brain is going into overdrive. Like, hold up, the Imperial Guard isn't even investigating the attack on our duchy because they're part of it, exactly like Pania warned him about. So he asks if destroying some railway is really that big of a deal, like, you're going to ignore an attack on the descendants of the family that literally put the Emperor on the throne? That's actually insane. But Luke's all, well yeah, the railway belongs to the Emperor. So investigating its destruction for treason takes priority. Charon's getting pissed but keeps his cool, saying fine, they'll accept that for now. Zirez whispers that he handled that well. There's no point burning bridges with the Imperial Guard before they figure out who actually orchestrated the attack. Charon agrees it's just a theory for now, but the second he finds proof that these Imperial Guards are playing fetch for some rich noble family, he's personally crushing every single one of them. He can't wrap his head around the Imperial family being reduced to glorified servants for nobles. On the road, Charon mentions it's weirdly quiet. Revelio asks if he wanted to chat, and Charon's like, absolutely not. But Revelio brings up that speech the mayor gave in TB anyway, saying he knows exactly what Charon's playing at making the mayor the power center instead of the council, using the Reston name as his backing. Charon asks why he thinks that, and Leo breaks it down. All that Justice speech was just cover for rebuilding the Reston family's reputation after it took a hit from the incident. It was a genius move to secure a loyal ally for future power plays, and he knows that was Charon's real goal all along. Charon admits all that time Revelio spent hustling with the black merchants actually taught him something. Revelio says, well, yeah, he came up from the streets and went through hell just to survive, so of course he'd pick up on this stuff. Then Leo hears something from his pocket, and when he checks, it's Ponia asking if the trip's going well. He says yeah, but it's low-key frustrating since Charon's completely ignoring him. She tells him not to bicker too much since they're supposed to be friends. Charon immediately goes, we're not though, and asks what happened to their deal. He points out he never actually agreed to anything. He needs to hear the conditions first. She laughs, saying, okay, he got her there, but he should seriously consider it since her proposal benefits him too. Karen says they don't have nearly enough trust for deals like that. She's confused, so he explains. If he partners with a merchant guild run by an elf without permission, the elders will literally have his head. But she clarifies she wants to partner with him personally, not his family name. He asks why, and she says quality products are always worth the investment. Plus, Rio needs a friend. Charon immediately says he really doesn't like that last part. She tells him to consider the info she gave him a gift, and if he ever needs anything, just hit her up through the crystal sphere. Leo laughs, telling Charon they should totally get along since they're both exactly the same kind of selfish, and hands him the crystal so he can call whenever. Revelio looks out the window, saying they're almost there. When Charon glances out, he sees this absolutely massive gate opening up. Welcome to the capital, baby. Inside, Leo tells him if there's anything he wants to check out to call him since the tour's free. Charon says, nah, he's good, and Rio drives off, saying they'll see each other soon anyway. Luke also dips, and Charon thanks him. As they ride off, Charon's thinking, yeah, obviously we'll meet again, but has no idea when. Turns out when is pretty damn soon. Leo asks if Charon knows what that bright shining tower is. Charon says it's the magic tower. Leo asks if that's the one with mages in it, and Charon's like, yeah, genius. It's literally in the name. Leo says it looks sick, and Charon agrees, noting the mages dropped an absolute fortune on it. The magic tower's finally starting to feel legit now that it's in the capital. He smiles, saying this is no different from him returning to his own grave. Hugo then says it's about time, and when they spin around, they're completely shook that they didn't even sense him standing there. Leo starts absolutely freaking out, and Charon realizes he couldn't detect Hugo's presence at all. This dude's level is definitely up there. This is one of those people they call the greatest geniuses of the Empire. Hugo says they've had a long journey, and they've done well. Hugo's standing there saying, if he's not mistaken, this is their first actual face-to-face meeting. Charon keeps it professional, saying it's a pleasure, and Hugo tells him if he'd known their youngest was this impressive, he would have visited the fortress way sooner. Karen's being all polite back, while Leo's internally freaking out, wondering if they're going to survive all this tension. Then Grandma shows up, welcoming them, and Karen immediately lights up, calling out to her. She's all sweet, saying, "Look how much he's grown," and she's already got a bath ready for him to wash up after that long journey. Karen mentions Grandpa's got business, so he'll be late, and she says, yeah, she knows. Now let's go buy brooches for tomorrow's banquet and get to bed early. Meanwhile, Hugo's just standing there staring at his own hand like, did my mana really just get pushed back? Turns out when he tested Karen's strength by sending out mana, this kid clashed directly against it. Not some calm, peaceful mana, but straight up violent storm energy. He remembers his dad, Tails, telling him to watch his cousins so they don't cause more trouble in the capital, and now he's thinking Karen is definitely someone he needs to keep his eyes on, wondering who the hell this kid actually is. After his bath, Karen faceplants onto his bed, thinking Hugo's a psycho for randomly testing him with mana like, that dude's unpredictable but different from Tails. Whatever though, he's back in his own grave after 50 years, so it's time to unwind with some booze he swiped from the prince's carriage. But instead of drinking it himself, he pours some on his sword. Guillotine immediately goes, "What the hell is this? If you're giving me something, make it blood." Karen says he just needed someone to talk to, and Guillotine's like, yeah, that tracks. You're not normal. Karen explains this place is literally his grave, and Guillotine casually mentions he already knows because he read Karen's memories. Karen's like, yeah, that's pretty standard for a magic sword, and Guillotine gets offended, saying he's not some basic magic sword. They banter back and forth. Guillotine wants to find whoever turned him into a sword and cut their head off 1,000 times. Karen points out he can only do that once. Karen says he needs to figure out the real meaning behind his second life since it should have been impossible without some massive power making it happen. Guillotine asks for more booze, so Karen pours his sentient sword homie another round because apparently that's his life now. The next morning they're out in the capital streets, and Leo's acting like a total tourist. Karen tells him he's embarrassing, and Hugo agrees, saying Leo needs to maintain dignity as a Reston and for the love of God fix that tragic haircut. He also tells Karen to be respectful to Leo in public for the family's honor. Karen asks if that means he can be casual with Hugo when they're alone, and Hugo immediately dodges by saying they're almost at the shop. Then Karen spots a clothing store and wants to stop. Hugo's confused because this place makes clothes for the elderly, and even Leo roasts him for being old-fashioned. Karen defends himself, saying trends are cyclical and always come back, then fires back, asking what Leo would even know about fashion. Inside, this old tailor's shocked young nobles are in his shop, apologizing that he doesn't make clothes for the younger generation, but he'll try his best. Karen says the clothes are for him, and then he recognizes the old man back when Karen was caned 50 years ago. This guy was young, and Karen kept bringing him impossible to repair outfits. Karen's reminiscing about how skilled this tailor was, thinking he could fight without holding back, knowing this dude could fix anything. The old man's taking measurements, saying he'll put his utmost effort in for the Grand Duke's grandson. Karen's surprised he recognized them instantly, and the old man's like, of course, Sir Kane was a regular here and a close friend of the Grand Duke. Karen asks if he remembers much about Kane, and the old man says absolutely to him. Kane was very warm, though he's sure Kane never even knew his name. Karen thinks to himself that now that he considers it, for all the years he came to this shop, he always just called the guy Kid. But surprisingly, being remembered by someone after all this time feels nice, so he finally asks for his name. He replies with a smile, saying it's Rohan. Then this woman bursts in, asking Grandpa if he heard the news that Kane's enemy, the grandson of Grand Duke Halo, entered the capital. But mid-sentence, she realizes who she just said this in front of, completely freezes, and Karen's sitting there like, I'm sorry, I'm Halo's enemy? Since when? So after this awkward-ass silence, this girl finally says hi to Hugo, and he's like, oh hey, first time seeing you since the tournament. Then Leo's eyes go wide, and he's like, wait, hold up, are you Amy Allura? Karen's standing there confused, asking how Leo even knows her. Turns out this girl's an absolute monster. She hit the 4th star at 17 years old. So now Karen's just standing there like, why is everyone around me a damn genius? Meanwhile, Hugo gets all embarrassed and apologizes for Karen before properly introducing her as Amy Allura of the Imperial Guard. Karen starts to introduce himself, but Amy cuts him off, going, yeah, I already know you're Karen Reston. And then she walks up to Leo, who's blushing like he just met his celebrity crush. Karen's wondering how the hell she knows all their names, and she casually mentions the seniors escorting them told her everything. Hearing that, Leo's like, that's the only reason. But Karen's brain is working overtime. He realizes this girl has insane intuition. She probably sensed their mana signatures and figured out exactly who they were. Just then, the tailor dude comes out and asks her if she has eaten yet, and she immediately snaps at him to stop being so formal and just talk to her like a normal person, since she's only an apprentice, not a full knight. Hugo's impressed by her humility and brings up how she once declared she'd lead the Imperial Guard for 50 years. But then Karen, being Karen, interrupts and asks why everyone seems to think his grandfather was Kane's enemy. Our boy just shrugs and goes, "The dude sold his soul to a demon. What's so admirable about that?" And Amy, she explodes. Like, we're talking full protective parent rage mode activation. She's screaming that she's challenging Charon to a duel for insulting Kane's honor. And I mean, this girl is furious. Charon just casually cleans his ear with his pinky finger and asks what gives her the right to challenge him. Amy's literally got tears streaming down her face now, yelling that she inherited Kane's will. Charon fires back, questioning this whole thing like, did Kane stay with the demon emperor because he sold his soul? Or was it actually his own choice? Amy refuses to accept any of this, screaming that Kane stayed out of pride. Charon sighs, thinking to himself that she's one of those old-school, stubborn types you just can't reason with. He asks how she expects to become a proper knight when she gets this hostile over a simple conversation. Amy's trying to explain she's doing this for Kane's honor when her stomach lets out this absolutely devastating growl that echoes through the entire tailor shop. Leo literally jumps, and Charon can't help but smile. He suggests they eat before the duel, then releases his mana, asking if she'd rather fight right now on an empty stomach. Seeing this, she is thinking how she heard that Charon reached the 4th star just like her. But seeing him release his power in person, the dude's on a completely different level, like, not even in the same universe. Before things could get ugly, Rohan told Amy that she should first eat before throwing hands. Plus, given her habits, she probably hasn't been eating properly while paying off her family's debts. Charon pulls his mana back, and the tailor jumps in trying to smooth everything over, saying destiny brought them together, so they should enjoy something delicious. Amy puts a hand on her growling stomach, grinds her teeth, looks away all embarrassed, and finally accepts the invitation. Cut to the restaurant, and Charon, Hugo, and Leo are just sitting there staring at the literal mountain of plates stacked on Amy's side of the table. This girl is absolutely demolishing her food, shoveling meat into her mouth like she hasn't eaten in weeks. She notices them watching and gets all embarrassed but tries to play it off, saying she's just eating well to prepare for their duel. Charon notes that she's being way more polite now, but Amy's quick to clarify, don't misunderstand, she'll pay her share next month. Karen tries to tell her it's fine, but Amy slams the table and stands up, declaring she couldn't possibly accept a duel on an empty stomach. But now that she's eaten, they can officially shake hands and make this happen. She extends her hand, and Karen notices it's rough, thick, and completely covered in scars, the hands of someone who's put in real work and effort. He thinks to himself that she'd be an incredible talent if not for that stubborn old man personality trapped in a young woman's body. They shake hands, sealing the deal, and Amy immediately asks if she can order another dish. Hugo's just watching all this play out, absolutely incredulous that these two went from wanting to murder each other to acting like buddies in the span of like 20 minutes. The scene shifts to outside the restaurant. This bastard sees our gang having a good time when he spots Amy through the window, eating and talking all excitedly about training. He ditches his soldiers and walks in alone. Karen's asking Amy when exactly they're doing this duel, and she's saying as soon as her next plate arrives while playfully warning him he might catch a beating. Then this dude approaches from behind, and his voice is all slimy and condescending, going, "You seem quite satisfied, Amy. If you showed up in town, you should have contacted your brother first." He puts his hand on her shoulder with this malicious smile plastered on his face, frowning mockingly while saying she shouldn't waste her time with these vagrants, and surprisingly, this bastard doesn't stop there and keeps going, asking if knight apprentices really have this much free time to fool around with men like this. Seeing this idiot trying to provoke them, Charon just smiles to himself, thinking, "Oh great, I found myself a damned troublemaker." Amy tries shooing this bastard away, saying she already paid this month's interest, so he needs to leave her alone, but nah, this scumbag's not having it. He's holding her shoulders, going, "I'm not interested in the money. I'm interested in you. Don't you get it? Wouldn't it be better to stay on good terms with your creditor? Like, bro, read the room." Hugo, who's absolutely done being ignored at this point, asks who the hell this guy is to interrupt their dinner like this and says, "Wouldn't it be polite to introduce yourself first?" And this arrogant prick is genuinely shocked that someone doesn't recognize him. He introduces himself as Degul Kian. Hugo immediately recognizes the name Degul, the youngest son of Count Kian's family, who basically run the capital's biggest loan shark operation. Degul's all proud that Hugo knows his family reputation, warning that nobody should be ignorant of their names since they control the finances of Marcus Diaz's entire household. But our boy is not having it. He laughs and says that this bastard is delusional. Even Amy's startled by how direct he's being. Our boy stands up, grabs his sword, and asks if Degul really thinks he came all the way to the capital just to exchange pleasantries. Degul's furious now, demanding to know who this brat is and asking if he needs to be taught a lesson. Charon walks past Hugo, saying, "Brother, I'll explain everything to Grandpa later," then pulls out 2 healing potions and shows them to Deagle like, "You see these? They heal fractures instantly. And just so you know, these are pretty expensive, so I'll be enjoying this." Then our boy straight up jumps at him, saying how today he is going to fix him with this absolutely maniacal look on his face, while reassuring him, "Don't worry, I'll leave you alive." Deagle just lets out this blood-curdling scream before getting the beating of his entire life. And the best part? Charon's making him drink healing potions during the beatdown so he can keep going. Cut to Grandpa's office, and he just got the report of what our boy did. And after hearing that, he is like, "Repeat that again." The assistant repeats nervously, telling Gale that his grandson was arrested by city guards 30 minutes ago. Gale's holding his head, thinking it's only been a day and his grandson's already causing problems. Then he sighs, braces himself, and asks, "So what did he do?" The assistant explains that Charon's accused of assaulting Deagle Khan, the youngest son of the Count family. Gale remembers the name Deagle's a notorious womanizer who specifically goes after the daughters of men who owe him money. Gale curses, saying that guy should be beaten to death. Well, old man, you've the same thought as your grandkid. It's just that he went ahead and did it. Gramps then asks his assistant if he knows why our boy did it. The assistant says they're not entirely sure yet, but they heard Charon beat up Deagle while making him drink healing potions between hits. Gale's getting worried now because incidents between nobles get handled by the Imperial Guard, and given the Reston House's complicated relationship with them, this situation won't be favorable, especially when it's against Count Kian's house. Gale stands up, ready to intervene personally, but the assistant stops him, saying he doesn't think it's necessary. The assistant reveals that the victim, Deagle Kian himself, is asking for leniency for Charon. Like, this dude is crying and begging for mercy, saying Charon's completely innocent and that everything was his own fault, and he had even promised to turn a new leaf and become a better person. Gale can't believe the notorious brute Deagle is doing this and just laughs in complete disbelief. Head bowed, trembling slightly as he wonders what kind of magic his grandson used to pull this off. Then it suddenly hits him. Halo wouldn't send Kara into the capital thoughtlessly, and then he realizes that Halo knowingly unleashed a mad dog in the capital to shake things up. Meanwhile, back to our boy, the initial investigation had been completed, so now our boy is casually leaving the police station, saying, "Pleasure meeting you, police chief. I'll be visiting often," hearing that the chief is absolutely horrified because that means more trouble is definitely coming. Charon asks if they'll handle this case properly since Deagle already confessed to everything. The officer nervously explains that investigations involving nobles are technically the Imperial Guard's responsibility. Charon just shrugs and says he'll ask his grandfather about it then. Hearing that Halo will be getting involved, the officer is already scared. But then Charon adds with this innocent smile, "Oh, I could also ask my maternal grandfather too if needed." The officer, who's now opening the gates to let Charon out, nervously asks what that grandfather's name is. Charon smiles all sweet, "Sir Gale, the tax commissioner." "Why do you ask?" The officer becomes even more terrified, practically shouting, "I will do my best to handle this case." Outside, Hugo, Leo, and Amy are waiting for him. Hugo asks what kind of conversation could have possibly made the officer that scared. Charon humbly jokes that maybe it's just proper incentive to ensure justice gets done. Hugo sighs, saying since the case is apparently closed, he won't hold Charon responsible for this incident, but next time could he at least give him a heads up first. Hugo's internally thinking this kid absolutely cannot be controlled. Trying to control him would just cause more problems down the line. Charon agrees to notify him next time, and Hugo thanks him for understanding. So now Hugo's standing there thinking, how could Uncle Pale, who's so polite and respectful, have raised such an absolutely crazy son? Like, what happened in that household? Charon walks over to join Leo and Amy immediately apologizes for getting him involved in all this mess, offering to buy him tea as compensation. As Amy guides them toward the tea shop, Hugo's thinking about his father's orders and wondering what the hell he's supposed to do when Charon doesn't just get involved in incidents, but actively causes them himself. He's even considering stopping by the magic tower to pick up some magic ropes to control this maniac before things get worse. So the squad pulls up to the coffee shop, and the second Charon sits down, the staff starts bringing out biscuits, tea, cakes, literally the entire dessert menu. Charon's staring at the sugar bomb like, "Bruh, where's the actual food?" Meanwhile, Leo's practically bouncing in his seat, and Amy notices Charon's looking kind of different and asks him if he doesn't like the sweets. Our boy tries being polite about it, saying, "It's not like that." But just then the owner comes over with another tray of cakes, grinning ear to ear, and tells the gang to eat as much as they want. Charon's looking at Mount Diabetes forming on his table and going, "Yo, shopkeeper, isn't this a bit excessive?" But this man is not taking no for an answer. He leans in all hype because apparently word spread through town like wildfire. You're the hero who delivered divine punishment on that bastard. Degel and Charon's just sitting there like, why does everyone think I'm some righteous savior? Seeing this, his plan to get a bad reputation failed in a spectacular manner. Our boy decided to focus on sweets inside. He takes a bite and thinks to himself, you know, it's not bad. Then he turns to Amy and asks her how she ended up drowning in debt to the Kian family. She explained that her dad tried to expand the business and failed so hard they're still paying for it. Leo chimes in, asking if the territory taxes weren't enough to cover things. Amy explains it's way deeper than that. Provincial nobles living in the capital, that lifestyle will bleed you dry. They need extra income just to keep up appearances. Hugo sips his tea all casual and asks why the Imperial Guard isn't throwing money at her. With her talent, shouldn't she have sponsors lined up? Amy drops the real reason she's been staying independent. Sure, if she picked a faction, the cash would roll in, but she refuses to play the political game. Karen asks why she'd handicap herself like that. Amy gets this soft, nostalgic smile, talking about how Kane's pride would never let him compromise his ideals for politics, only the sword mattered to him. Meanwhile, Kane's sitting right there thinking, girl, you got me all the way wrong. It wasn't pride keeping him neutral, it was pure survival instinct. Then Charon just casually drops the bomb. So if I clear your debt, will you come with me? Leo and Hugo immediately do a spit take, and Amy's just confused. Leo then turns to Charon, saying, how, even for him, is that messed up? Charon's like, huh. Then Leo goes into full lecture mode, saying that paying off someone's debt to make them your woman is the same scummy move Deagle would pull. Charon damn near lunges across the table to strangle him. When the hell did I say that, you moron? Hugo wipes his mouth, all serious and disappointed, saying how Miss Amy may not be a knight yet, but disrespecting someone's honor like that isn't right. Charon slams the table hard enough to rattle the teacups. I'm asking if she wants to join the Herring Knights Order. Leo sighs and tells him not to change his words now that he has gotten caught. They start arguing while Amy's covering her mouth, trying not to crack up. It's genuinely the first time she's smiled like this in forever. Once the chaos dies down, Amy thanks him but politely declines. Charon's caught off guard. Wait, so you actually want to stay in the Imperial Guard and fix it from the inside? She nods with this dreamy, idealistic look and says how if Sir Kane were alive, he'd give the same answer. Kane's internally screaming, woman, you have completely misunderstood my entire personality. He wasn't some noble idealist fighting for justice, but he recognizes her type's stubborn, principled people who'll stay loyal to a sinking ship until it drags them under. During the war, he literally ordered his knights to abandon him and save themselves. Every single one refused and wanted to die fighting beside him instead. They bounce from the cafe. Amy asks about the duel situation. Charon says it's too late now. He'll just have his grandfather arrange an official match instead. The Herring trio says their goodbyes, with Leo especially hyped about meeting her. As Charon's walking away, Amy yells after him, Charon, next time, speak formally to me. I'm older, so I'm your Nuna. Charon doesn't even turn around and replies, I only respect people stronger than me. You want respect? Beat me to hearing that. Amy's grinning to herself as she walks off thinking, bet, challenge accepted. Back at the residence, Charon gets a call. Xerxes' voice immediately comes through sounding stressed, asking him what the hell was he thinking, hitting Count's son. Charon's completely unbothered. It fixed the villain problem. Violence works every time. Xerxes didn't expect him to go that nuclear, especially with Hugo standing right there as a witness. Charon reveals that surprisingly, he and Hugo are actually cool now they're getting along. Xerxes sounds relieved through the crystal ball, saying how the victim asked for leniency, so there's no major fallout. But Charon's now on the radar of half the noble families in the capital. I swear I've told you this 1,000 times already. He tells Charon to show up at the palace tomorrow and makes him promise he'll behave in front of the emperor. Charon goes, I swear on my father's honor. Xerxes pauses, suspicious. Why your father's honor and not your own? Charon's response is instant and shameless, because I don't have any. Charon mentions he tried recruiting Amy from the Imperial Guard. Xerxes knows exactly who she is, and she asks him how it went. Charon told him how she rejected him flat. Xerxes calls it a shame, saying how the Imperial Guard would be lucky to keep her. Then Charon asks to speak with the family head directly, saying that it is something he needs to discuss with Halo personally. After a bit, Halo's voice comes through, asking our boy if he called for him. Our boy replies, yes, my lord. Seeing that Charon used the formal title, Halo immediately knows this is official business. He's concerned but tells him to go ahead. Charon gets straight to it. He wants to hold an official match against the Imperial Guard. Halo crosses his arms. Why? Charon reminds him they've always competed with the Herring Knights, so now he wants to test himself against the guard directly. Halo goes quiet for a second, thinking, is that really all you want? Charon nods. Halo agrees but drops a condition that's non-negotiable. Until you meet the Emperor and the royal banquet ends, you don't cause a single problem. Charon agrees to the terms. Halo warns him to watch his behavior at the palace. Charon figures keeping his mouth shut for one day won't kill him. It's not like he's actively trying to cause chaos anyway. After all, this place is his grave too, might as well not disrespect it. Cut to the next day. Xeris knocks on Halo's door. Halo tells him to come in. Xeris reports he sent that official letter to the Imperial Guard like Charon requested. Halo asks what the response was. Xeris goes. They accept it instantly. Halo's already connecting the dots. The Duke's grandson sends a challenge. Obviously, they're going to take it seriously and prep like their lives depend on it. Xeris looks confused. Are you actually worried? Halo sighs heavily. Worried about that kid? Nah. He just reminds me way too much of Kane. Xeris does a double take. You mean Sir Kane? Halo nods, getting this faraway look in his eyes, and he says how, if that bastard were still alive, the Herring Knights and Imperial Guard wouldn't be wasting energy on this petty rivalry garbage. Xeris can tell the old man's missing his friend. Then Halo suddenly explodes. Hell, no, why would I miss a man who completely ignored my desperate pleas? Xeris is thinking, bro, you are the worst liar. Halo mutters under his breath, absolutely wouldn't miss that asshole. Xeris switches gears and asks him, do you know Amy Allura, female knight? Halo nods, remembering she's an Imperial Guard apprentice. Xeris mentions Charon specifically wants to recruit her for the Herring Knights. Halo's confused as hell and asks him, why her out of everyone? Xeris explains her talent is way too good to waste rotting in the Guard. Plus, Charon's probably hooked because of her borderline obsessive respect for Sir Kane. Halo finds that suspicious. Most Imperial Guards won't even speak Kane's name out loud anymore. Xeris goes, exactly. They're actively trying to erase him from history. If you hadn't fought them tooth and nail on it, he'd be remembered as the worst villain in history. Halo wonders what about this caught Charon's radar. Xeris reminds him Charon's always been weirdly interested in Sir Kane's story. About Amy's family background, Halo asks if Xeris dug up anything. And yep, he did. Xeris ran a full investigation. They're a modest provincial noble family. Nothing remarkable, except one detail. 50 years ago, they changed their family name from AKT to Allura. Hearing that, Halo completely freezes. He knows the AKT family very well.